second edition. If you were with us last week, I hope that you did have a nice time, and I hope that today we will be able to deliver something exceptional, just like we did last week. Without wasting much time, we would like to delve into the topic. It's the street parliament once again, a call to action for Project Fix Nigeria. And if you would like to join this conversation, you're welcome. Just request the mic and I will gladly accept you to join us in this conversation. In terms of how we would proceed, the street parliament is a platform that was created out of the thought that Nigerian citizens matter. It is a platform that we hope to brainstorm, come up with ideas, collaborate and partner to develop these ideas, flesh them out, and give them more oomph. And we would be able to push some of these ideas forward and act on the ones that we would need to act on. We hope to also educate people about Nigerian critical issues. We also hope to outline the working systems of the National Assembly. And a typical nomenclature we're trying to give to the platform is that when you come up to speak, you kindly introduce yourself and state what federal constituency you represent. And we would use what we call an order paper, which will be what we will be discussing. And if you can look just on the Jumbotron, I've tried to post, I've shared the flyer of what we will be discussing today. Today's order paper would see us looking at a review of INEC and the 2023 elections. And secondly, we will be talking about reforming INEC for the 2027 elections way forward. So, Century, I don't, my co-host actually, I don't know if his network is okay now. But if you want us to get this space started, please just request the mic so that we can kickstart. It's not going to be just me hugging the mic and speaking all the way. So I can see a few persons joining us. Please kindly request the mic. Sorry, please. If you can hear me, just confirm that you can hear me, please. Just give me a thumbs up or something. Just any sign, just to show that you can hear me. Fatai, I assume that you can hear me. Just confirm, please. Can you hear me now? Century, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Century? Can you hear me? Century, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you still hear me? I can hear you now on the phone, but not on the space. Okay. That means I have to end the space and start afresh. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, loud and clear. Welcome.
Okay, you
Welcome.
can hear me clearly now.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. It's clear.
All right, thank you very much, Section. Sorry, apologies to everybody. We had to end the other space because of I don't know why I couldn't be heard on the space. So once again, welcome to Street Parliament. Street Parliament. This is going to be the second edition of this space. Um, my name is Chukudi Analo, and I am an active Nigerian citizen. The hope of this space is to be able to outline various issues in Nigeria, and most importantly, um, engage within ourselves to profile solutions and work actively to be able to drive these discussions and outcomes from this space. So without wasting much time, considering we've lost some time, I will just hand over to Century then to introduce himself and just take it from there. Century, go for it.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Chukudi. Century, co-hosting today's space with Chukudi, a privilege to be here. I'm an active citizen committed to ensuring that we shape a better future for Nigeria and Africa as a whole. Really interested in governance, technology, media, communications, data research, you name it. But all around citizen that believes that we can get it right. Not in the next 50 years, we can get it right very soon if we're able to organize together towards shaping a future that we desire. Thank you, Chukudi. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to this conversation with the smart minds that we have around us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. So I think we'll just try to delve in fast. So on the Jumbotron, I've shared the flyer for today's space, and I've also shared the outline of the summary from the last space as well. So you can do well to engage in that. While today we will be looking mostly into INEC, and we will talk about the outcome of the last election, a review of INEC, and the second conversation will be reforming INEC for the 2027 elections and the way forward. If you'd like to be part of this conversation, do not hesitate to just request the mic, and we will grant your audience to speak. And when you come up, please be respectful of everybody's, and also try to be succinct and straight to the point so that we can be able to cover more ground within this space. Um, a key nomenclature we're trying to have with this space is that we're trying to also reflect the fact that people on social media actually true citizens, as against what our leaders try to propel that it's just people, bots, and all of that. So we appeal to you when you come up, introduce yourself and kindly introduce your federal constituency, where you come from, so that we can also get people partnering across board because they can identify themselves. So myself, I represent Anyocha Shimili Federal Constituency, which is in Delta State, and we'll just go into it. So a review of INEC. What was the last election like for us? So I have Madam Aisha here as well. Welcome and thank you for joining us today as well. The last time you gave us so much, and we hope that today you'll be able to give us some more. So Madam Aisha, if you're able to speak, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Aisha Yesufu Amak Buhari constituency, federal constituency. And it's a pleasure really being here. So I will listen a bit more because I'm currently driving. So when I get home and more settled, I will contribute to the conversation. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much for that. So I'll just delve in. So Century, let's get to you. Let's hear you. In terms of the last election, what was your experience like? How did you see the election from? I would like you to talk about from the runoff to the election day itself, and the post-election happening. So, how was your reflection, and what did you experience with the election? Century.
Oh, thank you very much, Chukwudi. Yeah, I think for me, the run-up to the elections was 23 elections. I would say started for me from the NSAS protest, right? So the NSAS protest was a wake-up call for me. Um, I got to realize that at the end of the day, if we don't shape the quality of leadership of our leader, if we don't shape the quality of the people who lead us, we will not get the kind of outcome that we desire. We're just basically going to be a bunch of people on Twitter, on social media, on the streets, just shouting and yapping. And so, what better way to make your voice heard? What better way to actually decide the fate of this nation than to participate in the elections? And 2020 election was a very, very important election. And there were interesting innovations that was put forward by INEC from IREV that was going to ensure that results will be shared from polling units, to renewed drive to get people to actually register and get their PVC, the use of BVAS. We saw the impact of BVAS in the 2015 election and how that sort of like to a significant degree reduced some of the issues that we face with our elections in terms of security and robustness of our elections. And we had high hopes. So there was this strong drive to register to collect your PVC. I participated in that drive. I registered. I remember thinking it was going to be very difficult for me to get my PVC. And it was a very sweet surprise that I went to my ward somewhere in Amak Buhari in Abuja, somewhere around Daki area there when I was staying there. And it was this very sweet, easy process. I got my PVC. I registered, got my PVC a couple of weeks later. And I also joined young people across different parts of Nigeria that were rallying people to go and get their PVC, because if you don't register to get your PVC, you can't make a difference. Was part of quite a number of different campaigns across different movements and nonprofits to get that happen. So I was really excited. I felt like the 2023 election was going to be an election that would turn the page. We're going to turn the page of this nation. And I remember waking up very early in the morning, February 25th, 2023, excited to cast vote. I went to the polling unit and there were thousands of people, let's say hundreds of people there. And it was a bit difficult for me to locate my actual polling unit because I could remember that in my polling unit, there were different units in that same place. And it was very difficult to find my actual polling unit. I stayed in the wrong place for close to 2 hours, only to realize that I was in the wrong location. And I was able to finally track my polling unit. And the process was very, very easy. It was straightforward. The BVAS recognized me. I went in and I cast my vote for the first time. I felt, and for the candidate I felt I wanted to win the elections, I was really excited. I felt like I was a Nigerian for the first time in a long while. Because that was my first time. It was the first time I actually participated in an election. In the past, I would always listen. I would always stay at home. I didn't bother to participate because I felt like my vote would not count at all. There was nothing for me to come and vote in any election. But on that, 2023 was sort of like different. Because of the promises made by INEC and the rest, I felt like, okay, you know what, my vote is going to count. I came out, mobilized my family, mobilized my siblings, mobilized my parents, everyone come out and vote. And we voted. IREV, we got some results on IREV only to end up with the news that IREV is not working now. That that some of the results that's hang or something has happened to the IREV. IREV is no longer functioning. I was like, what do you mean? And then the great story of Nigeria started unfolding. And up to today, I've not recovered from that. What ended up happening was that IREV was a disaster. There were a lot of falsified results. It was just a mess. And then we ended up with what we currently have as the 2023 election. So I wouldn't go into detail to just talk about, to do a deep diagnosis of what really happened. I won't go into too much details because I think we're going to have a lot more time to actually sort of like have a detailed research-based look, analysis of what really transpired in 2023 elections in this space. But that was my experience. It was a disappointment. I think that would be the main word, disappointment. For the first time, I felt powerless. I felt like Nigeria we can't get it right as a nation. Because if I went through all that stress and my vote didn't count, then why should I vote in the future? Why should I participate? And post-election, yes, I did my best trying to get a sense of what really happened with the IREV in terms of collating results from different people who just to understand the discrepancies between the results INEC was announcing and what citizens, most young people sort of like captured at their polling units. I had over 20,000 result sheets in my Google Drive, just to sort of like get a sense of what was going on. And it became clear that the discrepancy was too much. From result sheets that were tampered with, so many things happened, and to a large degree, I felt disillusioned. So that's my experience, Chukwudi, about the last election. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Before we proceed, and Century, thank you for that submission.
Yeah.
If you can just try to accept people, because I don't know what's wrong with mine. It seems like when I'm accepting a request, it's dropping them off. I don't know. So just try. Let's see.
Okay. I'm doing that now. Whenever I see request to become a speaker,
okay,
I would accept them now. Thank you very much. I think John Bossi is now a speaker.
Okay, so
that's my experience. Thank you.
Narration, and which I think somehow across board is what we all experience, is all we all felt. We started off on this high. We started off on this so much reassurance with INEC telling us there was an electoral reform act that was modified and passed into law, and everybody felt like, oh, for once. And I think the run up to that election, we saw some official discussions whereby certain states we had runoff elections. We saw the role IREF played in ensuring that justice was served and the right person was allowed into office. So I think that kind of reinforced our confidence that for once we're going to get it right and we would vote. And like you mentioned, NSAS was a huge turnaround for a lot of young persons, because at a certain point, the conversation was around, oh, this is not the way to seek change. You need to go to the polls. And young people mobilize themselves in mass and numbers. You bringing out their own funds to rent buses, to mobilize people to register to vote. We saw a huge turnout in terms of voter registration. We saw a lot of reassurance over and over again from the electoral umpire, that everything was going to go as planned. But be it as it may, on that great day, the story was not the same. I think, irrespective of the fact that the story was not the same on the day of the election, a major part of it was we were hoping that INEC was going to build itself and try to kind of provide solution or try to self-autocorrect somewhere. Unfortunately, we went through that process and went through the courts and all to where we are today. So I would say disappointment, like you said, it's also what I share in terms of the last election. However, we are Nigerians and we would continue to work continuously to see what we can do. So without much ado, I think I'll just bring in John Bossi, and let's just hear your own experience as well. Just tell us a review of what you had. Please, I'd like us to just make it succinct so that we just don't bore our people engaging with us. Please, once again, if you are here, kindly request the mic if you'd like to tell us your experience, what happened at your polling unit. If there's something very unique from what other people have said, we would like to hear. Did you experience any form of electoral violence? Did you experience any disappointment, like polling unit materials being carted away to somewhere else that's against the right channel and right location? We would like to hear such kind of things. So John Bossi, If you're new to the space, you need to all just know that when you come up here to speak, kindly introduce yourself with your federal constituency, which is a major nomenclature of this space. Like you hear, it is Nigeria, it's street parliament. We believe that as much as we have representatives, we believe that you and I on the streets are actually the true parliamentarians. We're truly representatives of Nigeria. So we just want to start giving that sense of that people on social media are real people and not just bots. So over to you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me speak on this space. My name is John Bose, and I am from Edo North, Isako East local government area. Now, before the elections in 2023, like, we had a very, very big wake-up call as youths. The EndSARS protest was one of the things that actually changed the narrative, not just for the youth, but even for the people in power. They began to understand that Nigerians were tired of this repetition, this pattern that seems to just continue. And it seems like the longer we tolerate, the longer we fold our hands and do nothing, it just seems like it gets worse and worse. But in 2020, I think the leaders began to understand that Nigerians were tired and they were ready to change the narrative. Now, I desperately wanted to participate in the election. I for once had a reason to vote, because before the elections, I used to see the decision in the polls as a choice between the lesser of two evils. But for the first time, I felt different. I felt that probably once in all my years, I had the option to choose what I felt was the greater good. So I really wanted to make my voice heard, but try as I would, I just couldn't get registered. I tried every single avenue several times. I waited days in different registration centers that were set up by INEC, and I just couldn't get registered. So at the end of the day, I decided to encourage those who were able to successfully get their voters card to make sure that they go out and they vote. But the experience was, well, I loved the turnout. I loved the fact that we actually showed up under the rain and people stayed and had their votes counted. But despite that valiant effort, it was just terrible that the outcome did not play out as one would have expected. And I think that following from that, many persons got discouraged. However, I would say something that has taken a long time to get this bad, it's not going to change just because we decided to act. I think that we should not give up. I think that we have shown that we have the capacity for change and we are ready for it. So I think that we should continue with that same spirit. And it is only a matter of time. Our voices will be heard. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. It's quite a sad one, and this is why I think this kind of space is very important, because top of my head, when we talk about the review of the last election, I would mostly focus about what happened in terms of not voting, of voting and outcome. But here, somebody's experience is the fact that despite all effort being put in, he couldn't even get his voter's card and he couldn't get registered to vote. So in terms of this, I think these are also kind of things that we would like to engage in terms of review and ways that we can improve INEC and improve the electoral experience generally for everybody. So I've got somebody else, Nigeria, that Doge 0001. If you just take the mic away, 2 minutes. So please, and I wouldn't want to stop you. Just hear me ring the bells, okay? Dodge, are you there? Okay, if you're not there, I think I will go to Big Gift. Big gift, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, so you have the mic. Go ahead. What was
All
your
right.
experience in the last election?
Well, I'm so happy to be part of this platform where we talk about how to fix Nigeria. The last election experience was not really good. The only important thing I noticed about the last election was Nigerians were very eager to cast their vote based on the promises made by INEC, and that the election will be seen and be felt to be free and fair. So there was this mass mobilization from all walks of Nigerians everywhere to come and cast their vote, and they really did that. But Nigeria will still be Nigeria. We cannot get it right anytime. A situation where I mobilize people to come and cast their vote, telling them that their vote is going to count. That it's not going to be as usual, like the way they used to see it. That this time, INEC has done a lot of things. There are a lot of mechanisms to, make sure that all their votes are count, and nobody's going to intimidate them or make them feel uh, less that whatever they do, their vote will not be counted. After doing all this, people came out in different polling units to cast their vote. But surprisingly, a vote was casted and some of the votes were counted. Not some, the votes were counted. But getting to the time to upload the results coming out from each polling unit, we started seeing Nigerian symptom where the RF cannot be uploaded. They are saying network this and all that, getting a lot of excuse and all that. At that point, intimidation started, and you see some polling units where opponents feel that they've lost the election because the result was not uploaded in RF. They started making problems. Violence started, and the only means was to make that violence so the election will not be completed, the result will not be announced, and all that and all that. So it continued in so many polling units, and that took the order of the day. Then when we finally we saw the outcome of the result, everybody was disappointed, and that has really affected so many people. When you tell them this time around that please come and cast your vote and all that, they won't want to listen to you because what happened in 2022 election, it's uh it's something I cannot speak of. Oh, sorry. So the experience was bad. I can't uh, I can't say less. The experience was bad, and if that is the case again in 2027, I wonder how it's going to look like because we should start with INEC. How is INEC being constituted? Who constitute INEC? Who are the persons who are there? A lot is going on there. So until we get it right with how INEC is being constituted and the characters and the persons who, occupy those wonderful positions in INEC, then we're going to get it right. Not a situation where our politicians, nominate these persons who occupy those seats to conduct the election for us. They all have interests. And when their interest is not protected, they must do everything to make sure that interest is protected against the masses. We could have a good candidate, but he's not going to pass because he does not belong to the class that they said is going to rule or whatever. So if INEC, the constitution of INEC, how they constitute INEC and who occupies that seat is not being dealt with, I don't know how we're going to fix this country. I don't know how we're going to fix it. So the experience was terrible. Some persons were beaten in the polling unit. Voters card, voters, this thing was destroyed. Voters' materials were also destroyed. People were scamping for safety because some persons feel they've lost in that polling unit, and those politicians who felt they lost in the polling unit started making troubles. You see where a politician will come with talks and carry all the electoral materials and leave to no destination that anybody knows. So at that situation, what do you tell the populace? Please come out and vote. Vote for what? Who are they voting for? Is it the one they are going to vote and their vote to be counted? No, they won't want to come. And if,
Big Chief, can you hear me? Big Gift, can you hear me?
yeah,
Okay. Can you just wrap up in 30 seconds, please? I think I've given you more than enough time. So.
okay, thank you so much. So what I'm saying, if the situation remains like the way it was in 2023, I doubt if anybody is going to come out to cast their vote because they've lost that confidence, and Nigerians have really lost that confidence in the government and INEC. So the experience is bad. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much for that. We'll just try to move the mic quickly so that we can finish up with most people we have on the space and then get into the next point, which is more critical as well. Nigeria, are you there? I think that is Dodge 001. Are you there? Okay, if you're there, I don't know if it's your network, just put your hands up because if I don't see your hand, I'll probably need to drop you so that I wait for other people who want to speak. We will just move on to, sorry, it's moving. Okay, if you can speak, go ahead.
All right, so good evening, everyone.
Yeah, evening.
Um, all right, so
Hello, good evening.
my name is Nigeria. So I want to reflect on the last 2023 election that well, actually voted at Oshodi Solo Federal Constituency. So I voted here in Lagos. The experience was very bad, but it's something that they are used to if you are voting in Lagos, most especially in Oshodi. So, for instance, in that my polling unit, there was a ballot snatch and a gunshot, and even the policewoman that was with us was stampeded on. So a lot of people were scared, and that actually happened after the counting of the votes, and the LP presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, won with landslide. So the boys came around, pursue people, shot in the air, and scatter away the some of the, most especially the machine that was used. So after that, I left. I went around so many polling units around Oshodi Solo. It was the same thing. They were going street to street. The boys went street to street, destroying the ballot box, destroying that beavers machine, collecting some of them and going away with it. The experience was very, very bad, sincerely. And a lot of Nigerians actually came out to vote. And I still believe that the vote was massively suppressed. Like, it was massively suppressed. The numbers that came out, the numbers that INEC read out was far low more than what came out to vote. Because I can tell you that after my polling unit, I went around more than 55 different polling units around Oshodi. LP candidate was winning with landslide, and a lot of these massacre, a lot of these gunshots, boys on the street raiding the streets was what was happening massively, and the police could not even help. The police could not help. Even most of the police were scared. And you know one thing about these things is that these faces that perpetrated these issues are known faces. Even if you live in if you live in the Oshodi, those boys that perform those things, that there are people we know. We know them very well. Like, if you stay around most of the streets, you know that that's what they do. So I think what we Nigerians need to do going to 2024, I don't think we should give up. I think along the way, we were too confident on the INEC guys, which they lied to us. They didn't allow the result to be transmitted from polling units. And I think we should learn to protect our votes. Yes, I think we should learn to organize to protect. For instance, in my polling unit, only 3 guys were the one that performed the magic. 3 guys. Initially, they didn't come with gun. They came because people know them to be troublemakers. Immediately they start coming, people start talking. The way Nigeria, most especially in Lagos, people start saying, "Yeah, they are coming or they are coming." Before you know, the line starts scattering like that and so on. And they passed. Then when they came back the second time, what they just did, they didn't even say anything. They just shot in the air. Imagine, they just shot in the air and everybody just scattered. Then they took the beavers machine. People start running inside the compound that we use for voting and so on. So I think we need to learn to vote and defend. If we want our nation to work, let's vote and defend the vote, because the present system of government, I'll also wrap up, thank you. The present system of government that we have, the present government we have, they can never give us free and fair election. Even if they tweak the INEC to work, they will never allow it to work. That's what I think. I think we should learn to vote and protect our vote to count. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. So, and your experience was one of violence, and I think violence is a critical thing that keeps distorting our electoral processes. And but a key measure that you've said, and that's a sentiment I hold, that most times the people who participate in this electoral violence are usually known within the community where they perpetrate this violence. And the question remains that what happens to them post-election? What happens to the security personnel who sit down there and witness these things and sometimes are also participants in these acts or also supportive of such electoral violence? So I think those are areas that we need to look at. So we're just taking down notes, and when we come, we will talk about in terms of action points and way forward, what can we prefer? And hopefully a key thing about this space is we're going to try to put a lot of action. So if you can see, we've done a summary of the last space just on the Jumbotron. We've talked about the key points. We would start acting on them as time due time. It's just that this, because it was the first space, we still had to do a few things to be able to get it transcribed and all of that. But hopefully subsequent ones will come out a bit earlier. It wouldn't be on the same day as the space. So a lot of actions is what we're hoping, and we are promising that we will deliver with this space. It's not just going to be a space for talk. So I would also encourage that if you see any of the actions that you think that you have an action point for, and you know that you have the capacity to deliver on any of the action points, can they reach out to any of myself or Ken Century, and we would try to see how we start building a team around this action point, and we all work collectively. Most importantly is partnership for the goals. We work together and we're better off. So I will just go to IK Infos. You've got 2 minutes, please, and just try to be succinct.
Good evening.
Evening. Go.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Good evening, everybody. All protocols do observe.
I'm sorry. Before you
Aisha
proceed,
Yusufu, I greet you.
IK, just hold on. A key nomenclature here, if we try to introduce our federal constituency. So just tell us your federal constituency, where you're from. So just like, we're just trying to mimic the parliamentary.
Hello.
IK, can you hear
Hello,
me?
what did you say?
I said,
yeah, I can hear you. What did you say, please?
Phase is trying to mimic what happens in our House of Parliament, which is introducing yourself and your federal constituency. What federal constituency are you from? Can you hear me?
I'm from Imo State. But where I partake in voting according to federal is in Lagos. Presently, I'm in Abuja, where I'm working. So I wanted to just speak to the issues. I'll be very brief.
Okay, go ahead. I think I will point out that. Go ahead.
I was a first-time voter in 2023, so I had a lot of belief in the system, the BVAS, the IREF, that it would be a transparent election Fortunately, it wasn't. And as disappointed as it was through the INEC chairman and everything that was provided, going forward and trying to see if there will be hope for 2027, I have looked at the INEC chairman and the whole body, the INEC. They have not made any improvements so far. They've conducted elections after the 2027 elections. We have seen the handwriting on the wall, what they want to achieve. So I feel, in my own opinion, I feel that the Nigerian election is a fraud. I don't believe in the system anymore. They have conducted election in district, they conducted election in my state, in Imo State. I can tell you there is no.
You're a bit more.
Can you hear me?
Can you just? There's something wrong with your microphone. It's echoing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you now. It's better now. Go ahead.
Okay, as I was saying that looking at the electoral process when it comes to the Nigerian states going forward after the 2023 election, it has always been disappointing because it's obvious and physically to the blind that the election result does not reflect the will of the people. So I don't have any hopes of going forward 2027. I'm not looking forward to it, and I'm not be partaking. I've given up already to the establishment of the Nigerian state. So that being said, I yield. Thank you.
Well, I do hear you say because of what's going on, you've given up. But the question I'll ask you is, if you give up on elections and participating as an active citizen, will bad governance give up on you? So that's just the thoughts. We will circle back to that, because when I hear this, we've given up. The question is, does bad governance give up on you? Bad roads, does it give up on you? Does insecurity give up on you? Does poor healthcare give up on you? Poor education, does it give up on you? So we need to try to see that balance. But I will come back to that. We'll circle back to that in a bit. I've got sorry, I need to just pick a queue. So let's pick a queue. I think Venja, that's Stephen J, aka, and then followed by Desmond, and then Witty We'll go in that order. So Desmond and Witty. Please go. Once you hear the bell, just know you've got 30 seconds to wrap up so that I don't interfere and distort your thought process. Okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Good evening, everybody. My big regards to everybody. My big regards to the host, the co-host, and every members in this group, and also every members from all parts of the countryside in Nigeria, from the north, west, and south, and the east. So I'll go like this. I'm going to speak through summary, because what almost everybody they are saying in this group just seems similar. But I will go and I will start from the host. There's a line you drop about the other person speaking, saying he's tired and all those things. And you said the healthcare, the rules, are they tired of us? I will speak this, and I will speak it with facts. The Nigerian government, they are all occultic. And that is why nothing, I repeat, nothing is ready to work. And if we are not tired of it, like everybody is tired of the bad roads, no lights, no good healthcare, everything you can name off. But what are the signs? Because today, the average Nigerians, they are just like only internet warriors. I can put it internet keepers warriors, because they only know how to speak, how to complain. But when it's time to do the job, I know a lot of freedom fighters like Aisha. I know what she did during the 2020 NSAS, and a lot of other activists who are up there still trying their best to go against these cabals. But still, the condemnation they are getting is so much and so high. I can tell you, and I can state it with 100%. Like, we come about Nigeria, you see, if you come, you see East hating North, West hating North. Everybody just fighting. This is what the politicians, this is what the elites, this is what they want. They can never let anything work in this country, because that is the only way to suppress them. Most of these people, they are not ordinary. So now tell me, how is Nigeria going to work? Because if you look at the electoral processes, everything going on in this country is all scripted. Nothing happens without it being scripted. So talking about the last election that happened in Nigeria, we all know. Sorry to say, I'm from Anambra State, so I'm based in Benin, and from the Oredo local government constituency. So if I skip that part, so going forward, talking about the last election, we know what we. I've not even started yet. Too. So
30 seconds
about the
more.
last election, we know. Okay, we know what happened about the last election and how it was rigged. This rigging system has been there consistency about the is because he is answering to the cause of those they are behind these things. So it's not easy because the way everybody is talking about this country, everything is going bad. If things want to change, there need to be a strong zeal from the people, and all these things doesn't happen from the internet perspective. There need to be a strong desire to need this thing, because everything with the way everything is now, the top politicians, they have already scripted what they have already scripted it too. And they usually know Nigerians complain and they go back to their now talk the ballot boxes. If the country was good and there's a good rule of law, those criminals roaming the streets, they will be in prison. But the politicians, they know all these things. If the country is good, how would they still vote? How would they buy votes? How would they look for thugs? Even the thugs we are talking about, they are human beings like you and I. If you are going to go for man to man, are they not people that are man enough, even more than those people that can, okay. Thank you.
So because
Thank you for the chance.
it seems like you still, if you can just try to hit your points like in the next 10 seconds, just like what exactly is it that's your key take home from the last election?
Okay. The key that I will go through to summarize it. Like, the key thing that we need is we need accountability. There need to be accountability. There need to be a desire to need what we want. We need to start speaking out. We don't need to, because everybody complain on the internet, but in the real life, everybody doesn't know what they want.
Okay.
We just come on the internet and complain. Now, the last election, it was rigged. We all knew it was rigged. But what we can do now is to collectively, as Nigerians, come up with one voice, not division.
Okay.
Not I'm from north, I'm from east, I'm from south, or anywhere. With one voice. The politicians, they are scared of one voice. And if we keep on being divisive, there is no way that what happened last election, even what happened past between Buhari and Atiku, it has been happening before. But so all these things is not new. They just sit in their it's like just like politicians sitting in the city room making the law. Okay, I know you lost, but don't worry, you are my brother, you are my this, you are my brother, you are my this. We know these things. If Yoruba is there, all the Yoruba support you because they are the one there. If Igbo man is there, they will still support. Oh, it's my brother, because all these things are happening even without being there on the power sector. You have not been a governor yet, but if my brother is the governor, I don't have a problem with anything that he's doing. If my sister is the governor or this and that, I don't have any problem. We have to change that mindset and that mentality, and you have to be ready to stand firm, because even the police, everybody that you are mentioning, going all the arms you can mention in the Nigerian power sector, they all serve these political elites. So there's no.
Okay, sorry, I had to mute you because we've gone on for too long and we just need to manage our time. So please, I would just appeal to people, try to be succinct and just try to summarize, hit the nail on the head, and then before you betray, so that by the time your time is up, we're able to move forward and not continue circulating. We've got quite a few speakers. We will just take this set of speakers and we will move on to the next component of this conversation, which will be reforming INEC for the 2027 elections and the way forward. And setting points that are noted at the moment we would highlight and discuss. Century, my co-host here today, has been working a lot on electoral reforms, which has been putting a lot of work in the last 2 years plus, and kudos to him for that effort. So he's also going to try to lead the conversation in terms of reforming INEC. So we would hope that he gives us a lot of his insights from the years of work he's put in, and we would also hope to engage him and also see how we can act. Like I said, on this space, we want to act. We just don't want to talk. We want to act. So please, if you're a member of this space, try. Start thinking in your mind, how can I contribute to the actions that will be taken? What can I offer? Am I a good writer? Can you offer your time in writing? Can I review data? Can I be able to just offer maybe networking and reaching out to other people as well to engage them in all of that? So those are things that we would want to see. Something I've also noticed along the space is the fact that a lot of people don't seem to know their federal constituency, which I think is a problem in itself, because if we do not know our federal constituency, we do not actually know our representatives who make these laws that we complain about, and how can we hold these people accountable. So I would encourage everybody here to please try and get familiar with your various arms of government, the various tiers of government as well, your representatives at this point in terms of your local government chairman, your councillors, your State House of Assembly representative, your National Assembly representative, your senators, your governor. It will be important to know these people, because when you know them, you can now start asking critical questions of what exactly are they doing. So that is part of what we are hoping to achieve with this space, that the more we push people to identify their constituency, they can start finding out who exactly is representing them in terms of making the law. Because if we're going to talk about INEC, we definitely would need to talk about our representatives and getting our representatives to pass favorable laws that will hold INEC accountable. Thank you very much. So I will just move it on. I think Desmond, you're next. Please keep it very succinct.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, evening.
My name is Desmond. I'm from Ebonyi State, Ohanivo Federal Constituency. This whole conversation is interesting and at the same time very funny. I was just trying to analyze what the last speaker, the point he was trying to make. I understood what he was trying to say, though he was attaching something, emotion to it. You see, last election, I went to my polling unit in Ozoba, opposite primary health care, Ozoba, Obiakpon, local government in Port Harcourt here. I was like, okay, the election started very well. We cast our vote. I monitored and I saw everything that happened on that very day. I took time after I cast my own vote also to visit some other polling units within, both from Obogoro and some nearing Choba, Uniport, and other polling units close by. I noticed that indeed a certain political party, Labour Party, swept through with a very unimaginable margins. I contacted some of my friends in different polling units. They sent me the results of their own polling unit. The result was almost all the same. APC hardly got up to 10% of total vote cast in each of these polling units throughout. To my greatest surprise, Nigeria factor played out when the result finally came up from INEC. All of us, some of us witnessed what happened in Rivers State over that election. That is by the way. Now the problem The problem in this Nigeria with our electoral process and political activity lies squarely in the hands of the citizens, and the citizens are the problem themselves. At times when I come online, seeing some write-up, seeing citizens who are also sharing the same supermarket with me, buying goods the same price with me, trying to defend what is in essence indefensible. I begin to wonder what kind of God program. All right. So in summary, please, I think the solution to some of these things lies squarely in us working towards decentralization and returning back to regionalism. Anything short of that, please, I'm sorry, my people, we might end up just wasting our time, because even a lot of friends of mine are not even any longer interested. Some of them that I convinced to participate in the last election, I dare not confront them anymore for any election anymore. So if we are fighting, let's fight for regional system, whereby all regions fight and develop. Then you can actually hold your representative more accountable. Can any Igbo man hold the Tinubu accountable for whatsoever he do? No. Can any Hausa man hold Tinubu accountable for whatsoever he do? No, because his people are ready to support and to fight to defend him, irrespective of whatever he do. And that has been taught. That was what happened during Buhari. And that is what will likely happen if an Igbo man also should step there. So Nigeria has been so bastardized as fighting for electoral reform or whatsoever is a waste of time. Rather, let's all fight and see that we return to regional system. That is my stand. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, your submission is well noted. But one thing I will still ask you, just a thought I would want you to hold, is the fact that across the various regions of Nigeria, is there any place that there is no bad governance at the moment? Is there any place that the hospital services is one that is in good health state enough for the governor to patronize? Do the executive, the governor's kids patronize the schools in that region? So I want to, because I think most times we try to make it look like the regional system of governance means that certain regions are going to do far better than the other. But as we see it today, we have the subnational governance level, and the same bad governance is across every region and tribe. But just hold that thought, we'll come back to that. And I just think Witty-Maid, I think I'm beginning to hear a lot of Century. I think it's beginning, people are beginning to move into more action, what should be done. So I think we need to move into that. So after Witty-Maid, we will try to just move the conversation forward, summarize where we are moving forward. Witty-Maid, go ahead. Witty-Maid, can you hear me? Okay, I can't, that seems to be here. Or I'll just pass your turn to Evangelists of Truth. Hear your truth.
Thank you, host. And thank you for yielding the mic to me. I'll just be brief. First and foremost, I just want to appreciate people like Aisha, people like Bolanle, Field Marshal, First Lady Ship, many who risked their life, who risked their time. Please, I won't forget also David, our man David, who have tried, people like you, Sheikh. I know the role many of you also played during the 2023 election. I thought, and then I was weeping in my soul that indeed God have reserved some people for Nigeria, people who actually meant well for Nigeria. But it's quite unfortunate that personally, I would say that we missed that opportunity in 2023. It was a huge opportunity missed. I wish that Nigerians are learning from the Americans. We're talking about diversity. Nigeria is not that so much diverse in terms of ethnic groups and all that compared to America, where you have Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans, Hindu Americans, all manner of ethnic group all in America. But during this election 2024, they came out and in one voice and made their voice so loud and so hard because they were actually pursuing a particular purpose. And that purpose is good governance. That purpose is respect for human rights, respect for humanity. And they achieved that aim. And indeed, Nigerians also spoke in 2023. They were eager for good governance. But up to today, my brother wouldn't know what really happened. But that being that it may, we have to move on. And we're talking about moving on. I know that Nigerians are depressed. I know that many of us outside Nigeria are even more depressed. Talk less of our people at home. Because we see the rottenness, we see the corruption far worse than how we used to be. And the people are like, they are handicapped, they can't do nothing, they are helpless. We see bills being passed in one day, bills that have zero effect on the people, being passed in one day just to serve for a selfish interest of few. And Nigerians are helpless. So going forward, I think regionalism, like one of the speakers have said, yes, looking at the way things are, people will be glamoring regionalism. But just like the host also asked, do we think in all our states we don't have bad governors? Just a few months ago, I have a very life experience. Somebody who is dear to me contested the election in Imo State. And after buying the form and doing all the stuff, they only saw a list of people already selected for the same position that they are preparing for the election. That's happened in Imo State. I forgot to tell you guys that I come from Owerri Zone local government, Owerri Zone constituency. I'm from Ikeduru in Imo State. So I just want to submit that I think Nigeria should not be tired. It is time that we have to hold the Senate accountable. If the Senate can pass a bill in one day, amending the Police Act in one day, they can also pass a bill concerning electoral reform in one day. The people of Nigeria can demand for good electoral system come 2027. People of Nigeria can march together to the Senate and protest until their need, until their demand are met. This is not time that we should be thinking of 2027 when the rottenness, when the people who have done the damage are still in control of the INEC, are still in control of the police, of the army, of the DSS. So Nigeria should strategically begin to fight that lapses. And that is by going to the Senate to protest. So I yield back my mic. I yield back mic to the host. Thank you for the opportunity given to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will also acknowledge you. You acknowledged everybody for the effort they're putting in. I also acknowledge you as well, although for also contributing to this conversation. So I think it's time for us to move this conversation forward. Like we said, a key thing about this space. So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to Street Parliament. To create a space where we can engage, as we anticipate that the people we have elected as our representatives should engage on our behalf. It's also to create a space that brings a lot of sensitization around critical issues about governance in our country. And as we go on, we hope not just to talk and ventilate about these issues, but to create a critical action point and create a critical fulcrum as we can drive a lot of change processes. Do not only just come to this space with a mind to speak and submit. We want to build a critical mass of people who are willing to act. And in partnership, collectively, we would act. So one of the things that happens in the National Assembly is you would usually see an order paper, which says the things that are going to be discussed on the floor for the day, right? So we hope to always have our order paper. If you go on the Jumbotron, you'll see the order paper for today. We have 2 issues today. We talked about we're going to review INEC and the 2023 elections, and we're going to be talking about reforming INEC for the 2027 elections, the way forward, right? We've spoken quite extensively about our reflections, about what we saw in the last elections, about our concerns, about our various experience. And I think it's time for us to move into the next set of conversation in terms of what can we do to reform. I have Century Favor here. Like I did mention earlier on, Century has done an extensive work on electoral reforms, especially focusing on INEC. It is such an amazing work. I have had an opportunity to engage with some of that work, and I can't wait for everybody to engage it. Like, it is such a masterpiece. And that also brings to mind somebody like the late Ario. Anybody who is familiar with Ario, my God, rest his soul, who was somebody who was very critical to the Electoral Reforms Act in 2023, or something, unfortunately, did not see the elections itself. And so it is what, anywhere you find yourself, just remember him in your prayers and his family. I hope that they are actually having life easy at the moment. So, Century, I would like to bring you in here. Century, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, and Madam Aisha, please, if you come up driving, if you just want to speak, just let us know that you're available now to speak. We'll just bring you on board.
Yeah, I'm done driving.
Oh,
I've been
right.
listening to the conversation.
Okay, let's bring you in. You know that you're the face of resilience. You're this face who has actually been somebody who has been very vocal about governance in Nigeria. You have tried to help shine light on a lot of issues. So, and I know that you were very much active in the last election. So if you just help us, let's take your words as the conclusive part of this first session in terms of what was your experience of the last election, and we can now switch it from there to actions for the next elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So for me, my experience in the last election, you understand, it's a bit different from what people are talking about. For me, it's not even about the difficulty, whether in getting, I already had my PVC anyway. I got my PVC, I think that was 2011 or something, or like that. I've gotten that a whole lot earlier. And it's, for me, it was just a surreal kind of moment. As far as I am concerned, what happened in 2022 stroke 2023, before, as we went on to the election, was sort of like a revolution. It was a miracle. And I tell you, if anybody in 2020 or 2021 had told me that what happened in 2022, 2023 will happen in Nigeria, I would say, I better move, Joe. It's not yet time. Because that was something I was expecting was going to happen in the next, like, maybe 10 to 15 years. And for me, that's why I look at it, I'm like, wow, it's so amazing. Even though, yes, the end result, what we're supposed to have, there was a loss in the fact that the election was rigged. But the amazing thing that happened where Nigerians came out to vote, where Nigerians who had never participated in election, you had people in their 70s telling you that was the first time they were coming out to vote. You had people taking on election campaign issue on their head, using their own monies to buy campaign materials, to campaign. You know, you had people who were leaders all over in different spaces. Some, it was their local government, some it was their ward, some it was their place of work, some it was their houses, but they were taking ownership and leadership of it. Or for me, it was just so amazing. And having traveled around Nigeria for that election, I think I went uh, at least nothing less than 33 or 34 of the states in Nigeria for the campaign, and meeting different people and see how people were so hopeful. People spoke with one voice. You understand? No matter the part of Nigeria that it was, and there was this resilience. There was this need for, okay, yes, we got it. With the people were in charge, kind of mindset that we had. So for me, that's the election. That's what I see in all of this. And I'll give you a background. When people are like, oh, we lost the election, oh, it was a fail. I'm like, no. Do you know what it was for people to actually come out? And I think it was the first speaker who had spoken about the fact that we must not think about giving up. And even though in his own case, he had experienced, a whole lot in terms of not getting his ballot, his PVC, but yet he was rooting for the people who had their PVCs to be able to go and do things, just taking part, even whatever it is that you'll be able to do. So for me, that was just the experience. Looking at 2018, in 2018, I was part of something called the Red Card Movement. What the Red Card movement was all about was that, look, we can't just keep voting in the same people from APC and PDP. And it had gotten to a place where they were just giving us anyhow candidates, especially candidates that they can control. Candidates who don't have competence, who don't have character, who don't have capacity. That's what they were giving us, because they felt anybody they brought, people were forced to vote for them. And I've said this several times before. I'm going to say it again today here, that in APC and PDP, they have competent candidates. There are a lot of competent candidates there, but they will not allow those competent candidates, for them to come out, for them to get the ticket. That's where the problem now comes in. So when we're doing the Red Card Movement, a lot of Nigerians, the mindset was that, there's nothing like that too. Nothing can ever happen. Please, you can't vote anyone out of APC or PDP. It was almost as if we were mad people. We traveled around Nigeria. We were speaking to people. We're giving them, meeting people on the streets, almost like a street parliament, but on the streets. People were coming. You could see people venting. You could see people were angry. People wanted a different Nigeria. If you talk to people on the streets, you see them. But there was that helplessness that people had to say, oh, they were tied to these two parties. And that's, these two parties that were just like the Siamese twins who were just doing anyhow they wanted with Nigeria. So fast forward to 2022, going into the election and seeing how Nigerians took ownership. And for me, that was just the thing. It was like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine that I'm actually living, I'm alive to see Nigerians using their money to campaign for someone, using their money to go, to buy campaign materials, going out, doing a whole lot of things, doing the things they can in the different aspect they can. For me, that was just, the beauty of it all. And I would tell you, I just believe in the fact that if we Nigerians can continue, just like that first speaker had said, we must continue on. We must be resistant. We must be resolute. We must be resilient. We must stay on and say, look, we're going to see this to the end. We're going to see us, understand, finish this thing. Because what we've done over time is that we actually don't finish the thing that we start. We start, we get a good result. The moment we hit one hiccup like that, we run away. The moment we get a stumbling block, we say, no, everybody moves away. But yeah, that even if we fall, even if we didn't get that big win, it was snatched away from us, no wahala. We will continue to go on. And I've listened to the conversation. I've said people who talked about these institutions. Remember, these institutions are manned by people. INEC is not a building. INEC is Nigerians who are working at INEC. Judiciary is not just the buildings or whatever a name. There are people, Nigerians, who are working there. The police is not just the police. They are Nigerians. The thugs are not just aliens. They are Nigerians. So this is the time for us to begin to let them know that this suffering, all of us are suffering too. As we go to the 2027 election, we cannot sit where we are and think that it's business as usual. Whatever money it was you collected in 2023, I'm sure a lot of people have finished that money by now that we are in 2025. If the money is not finished, it's almost finished. Even the value of the money, it has reduced. What you could buy with it before, you can't buy it with it now. So these are the messages I think we need to remind ourselves and let people know that, look, going forward, as we work on whether reforming, whatever it is that we're doing, that citizens must take ownership. The days where we're waiting to say, oh, it's a candidate, let them come and they should come and find a way that they will not be rigged. No, it is every one of us saying that if I vote for someone, that vote must be counted. Even if I'm the only person that has voted that person, that my vote must be entered. That it is not just for us to go and put our thumbprint, that we must ensure that that thumbprint that we put, it is counted, it is entered at the collation center, it is whether it is IREV or whatever. In the final result, that thumbprint that I put, it must reflect on the person that I put it on, and nobody should dare to change my vote and put it in another person. I think we must come to that mindset where we realize that it is not just to vote, but also ensure that our vote is counted for the person that we meant it to be counted for. And at the end of that, whoever it is that had more votes should then be declared. Whether it's someone we don't like, as long as that is what the people wanted, we all accept it and no longer accept all of this ringing. Thank you very much.
Okay, as always, as powerful as it is. So thank you for that submission and taking us deep into actions and reforms for the 2027 election. And I think before I bring in Century, I always, sometimes, I hear this tone of there's been dissatisfaction, there's disappointment, there's despair, and people just feel need to give up. People talk about I've given up, I'm not going to participate in the next elections and all of that. And just like I did say to one of the speakers, if you give up, you need to look beyond just yourself and ask around. Would insecurity give up on you? Would bad healthcare give up on you? Would unemployment give up on you? Would all the failures of Nigeria give up on you? So it is that question that at what point should we give up? But sometimes I bring myself back by saying, if these people are so determined to continue to fail Nigerians, then we should be so determined as well to get Nigeria to work. And only then, when there is a greater force from us, that we will be able to push them aside. So I think that we need to stay persistent. We need to stay committed. We need to stay on track, and we need to be very laser focused and put all our energy in ensuring that we have a country that we can call our own. Century, I would just like to pass the mic to you to bring us to the next order of the day, where we'll be talking about reforming INEC. Before I do that, there's a bit of things that people have mentioned. People talked about the lack of ability to register, and even when they register, some people couldn't get their PVC. And when they've managed, they got to their polling units, they struggled to find their polling, the particular polling unit, whereas in the polling location, I would say, we also saw a case of even when they found their polling units, they casted their votes, there was issue of violence. And even at the point where they managed to, there was no violence, then these results were not transmitted as they actually was voted for. So there was some alterations and sometimes total cancellation of the results and the different results manufactured. There is some people who are also thinking that there's a lack of cohesive force amongst the Nigerian people, and the internet as a distraction point as well, the tribalism and regional structures as well being a problem, and people think that we should focus more on regionalization. So these are all points that we've seen come up, much validated as these are people's experience. This is people's thoughts and reflections. So Century, considering that you've been working on this project for a while in terms of electoral reforms, in terms of reforming INEC in particular, how do you combat all of these concerns that people have, from ensuring that everybody's able to register, people are able to find their polling units on time, people are able to cast their vote without any concerns of violence, people are sure that when they cast their vote will count? Century, you have
Yeah.
the
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chukwudi. Can you hear me? Just confirm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. So before I answer this question, I wanted to sort of like contextualize my comments or the research. So there's a body of work that will be published sometime this month, and it's a 3-part report. That report, what we try to do in that report is make a case. In part 1, we try to make a case for why we need to reform INEC, and then part 2 of the report sort of like provides citizens, Nigerians like you and me, with insights regarding what is wrong with INEC. Let's understand the issue. Let's really x-ray and understand what is really wrong with INEC. And then part 3 of the report now provides solutions, sort of like sets a clear sense of the roadmap for reforms. But so what I'm going to try to do in this, in the next couple of minutes, is just to share some summaries from the report. The main premise of the report is that flawed elections have an impact on our daily life. I mean, the reason why we're talking about INEC, and it's because to some degree, we've come to that understanding that elections have consequences, elections matter. But flawed elections have an impact on our daily life. And there's something called the flawed electoral cycle concept. And so what does that mean? It's a circle that traps us. So when you have rigged or flawed elections, flawed elections give birth to corrupt leaders who come into power. When they come into power, they now dish out poor policies, they entrench corruption. And then when they do that, they create suffering and hardship for citizens. And when they create suffering and hardship for citizens become frustrated, citizens become tired, they tune out of the process and they give up. And the cycle begins again. It starts again. The next election, the same cycle continues. And so the question we're trying to answer here, and the reason why most of us are gathered in this conversation, is how do we break that cycle? Because elections have consequences. And it's becoming clear that a major force or a major pillar or a major organization that we need to reform is INEC. And this is not the first time we've tried to reform INEC. There have been several efforts in the past to reform INEC. I mean, we had the Justice Wise report that came in a couple of years ago by our late president, Yar'Adua. He put together that commission. It was very extensive. Lots of people contributed. It was an extensive process. And they gave birth to a series of recommendations. And some of those recommendations have been implemented, but a couple of them, a significant amount of them have not been implemented. Now, what I would try to do is sort of like provide a brief analysis of where we are when it comes to INEC. Like, how have we fared now in the last series of elections in terms of the integrity of the elections? How have we fared? What is the status of our election? So I'll start with 1999. So in the 1999 elections, there was widespread rigging. We had some military interference. The credibility of the election was very, very low. I mean, the idea was we had results that were written in people's in rooms and dark alleys and all of that, and there was virtually no election in a sense, but because there was widespread rigging. 2023 elections came in, we had vote buying, ballot box snatching. There was no reforms at all at that point. 2027 elections, 2007 elections came, large-scale rigging, multiple voting, result falsification, no reforms. It was sort of like the worst election in Nigeria's recent history. Then 2011 came, we had post-election violence, we had logistical failures, voter suppression, and that was where the first reform was birthed. And this was building up, this was after the Justice Wise report, and that was where we had the introduction of the biometric voter registration. So the reason why I'm going through this whole process is try to make a case that progress is gradual. Like where we are when it came to, like where we were before 1999 is not where we are right now. And so for us to get to that El Dorado, that beautiful place, we need to work. We need to put in the work, and every election is an opportunity to move the baton forward. So in 2011, we had the biometric voter registration, and what that did was that it eliminated the idea of multiple voting, multiple registration. There was no, before then, someone can come to a polling unit and vote several times in one polling unit, but the biometric voter registration was able to prevent that to some degree. Yes, there was still voter suppression. The credibility for that election was a bit moderate. Then 2015 election happened. And in that election, we introduced PVCs and smart card readers. PVCs became the mainstay. It was, yes, elections were postponed. There was fraud in strongholds, but it was improved. It was in that election that we saw that a major party that had been in power for 16 years lost an election, and it gave birth to a new party, which is the APC. So elections have consequences. Electoral reforms can lead to outcomes. Then we came to 2019 elections. There was election postponement, vote buying happened, there was result collation issues, and there was a pilot of the INEC of IREV. The credibility of the election was still mixed. It's not still certain. And then we had 2023 elections. And that was where we had a serious setback. So there was BVAS failures, IREV non-transmission, and voter suppression. And in that election, we had a full deployment of BVAS and IREV. So the credibility of the election sort of like took us back, because periodically the story was that with every election, we were getting it right. So now with this context, I've been able to so far establish that elections have consequences, and that every election is an opportunity for us to reform. It's an opportunity for us to get tired or give up. It's an opportunity for us to move forward. Where we are in 1999 and where we are right now is as a result of a series of people working to push that needle towards fixing our elections, because it is clear that we need to reform elections. Now, to reform INEC or to reform our election, it's very important that we really understand what is really wrong with our election. What are the key problems that we need to address in our election? Now, in terms of the key problems, there are 14 key issues that we need to address, but I'm just going to breeze through it because there are quite a lot of detailed analysis on these issues. I'm just going to breeze through it. The first major issue we need to address or understand is that there's a lot of political interference and lack of funding independence. So in terms of appointment of officials, the executive arm of government has a very strong role in terms of deciding who will become the INEC chairman and resident electoral commissioner. And so what you would realize at the end of the day is that they end up through the back door installing their cronies as recs. And so before you even start, you've already compromised the process. So if we're trying to reform INEC, it's important that we understand that that's a problem. Because you can be shouting, INEC reform, INEC reform, INEC reform. What do you want to reform? We need to fix that. How we appoint officials. Funding is a problem too as well. The executive controls or has an influence working with the legislature in terms of INEC's funding. They approve it. We need to resolve that. There's an issue with our voter registration and electoral roll management. And we still have issues of double registration happening. We still have ineligible voters happening. You have underage voters still find their way into our voter database. We have to resolve that. Inaccuracies. You have people that have died a couple of years ago and they're still in the voter register. That's an issue that we need to address. One other issue that we currently experience when it comes to election is logistics and during the election day. Late arrival of materials. Materials will arrive lately. Then you have in some places where we have shortage of materials. INEC officials will go to a particular polling unit and they're not there with the right materials, or you have poorly trained personnel. The way polling units are managed is a problem. And then you have technology limitations and implementation challenges. So yes, technology has a very critical role in terms of improving the quality and integrity of our elections. But at the same time, there are implementation challenges. IREV, for example, was shut down in the middle of an election, leading to widespread distrust. So we have that challenge. Electoral malpractice is rampant. Ballot stuffing, vote buying. A major issue we have is manipulation at collation centers. So you end up going to the polling unit to vote and they announce the result at the polling unit. But because you don't know the result that was announced in the other polling unit or the other 200 and something other polling units, what happens is that nefarious actors prey on that lack of information, and they now manipulate results at the collation centers, inflate results. Elections, most people, the story is that elections happen in two places, at the polling unit, and the main election happen at the collation center. So manipulation. And the electoral fraud. And then one of the major issues we have is weak enforcement of electoral laws. There are quite, if you look at the current constitution, the 1999 constitution, the Electoral Act, there are already laws in place to even ensure that we have credible elections. If we just execute or deliver or act based off of those laws, we'd have good elections to some degree. But there's weak enforcement. There's a punishment for vote buying. There's a punishment for ballot snatching. But when was the last time anybody was arrested or prosecuted for that? None. Campaign finance regulation. You have situations whereby people who are already in power can leverage the coffers of the states to manipulate the election. So they would use, during the election, what you realize is that budgets will be padded, and at the back end, they will use the institution of the state to buy elections. Political parties will exceed spending limits because there's no way to track that. Opaque financing. So that's a problem that we need to address. Then we also have the issues of handling election disputes. There's a delayed access to election material. So if you have an issue with the INEC and you want to get it resolved, or you want to litigate an election or petition the tribunal, you will know that INEC has power in terms of how they will prevent you from accessing your documents at the time you need to do that. Then there's also the legal burden of proof that is now on the petitioner. So the constitution is currently designed in such a way that INEC is not required to defend their result. You come in and you want to hold them accountable. You are the one that would have to provide the facts, the data, the information. But the way it's supposed to be designed is that INEC needs to be able to go to court and defend their results. But now, according to the way it's structured, there's a legal burden of proof on the petitioner, and there's a lot of delays in resolving election disputes. I want to go into the issue we have with the judiciary yet. So we have legal irregularities, you name it. We have corruption, we have self-induced errors. I'm just breezing through this thing because it's quite enormous. So there's also issues around inclusivity, right? How do we integrate women, persons with disability, young people, in terms of how we enable people that are disabled to vote? These are issues that are currently wrong with INEC that we need to resolve. They're quite exhaustive, but how do we solve these issues? Like, what is the solution? I have a couple of them. And so the idea is that when we start asking for INEC reforms, electoral reforms, it's very important that we are very methodical in terms of what we are requesting for. And there are three key things we want to, that if we are trying to ask for reform, three key ways to look at the reforms we're looking at. One is constitutional reforms. The second one would be operational reforms. Like there are basically two structures: constitutional and legal reforms and operational reforms. So constitutional and legal reforms are reforms that revolves around modifying or amending the 1999 Constitution and the Electoral Act. And operational reforms are how do we improve the way INEC conducts itself. And there are quite a number of things that we can ask for or push for. The first one is we need to amend the 1999 Constitution and Electoral Act. And in this amendment, we need to shift and ask that the burden of proof in election petitions needs to move from the petitioners to INEC. So if I am saying INEC, you didn't conduct an election properly, INEC needs to be the one that would come to court to defend their results, providing data, providing everything to defend their results, not me trying to do that. So we need to put that in our constitution. We need to get to a point where election disputes can be finished before you swear in elected officials. Because the moment you do that, what happens right now is that when someone gets into power, they use that incubating, that short period of time, to start disrupting the electoral process. So we need to amend the constitution to stop that from happening. We also need to guarantee the rights of independent candidates, because that would weaken political parties and the role that they play. Then we also need to strengthen the laws that revolves around election-related violence and corruption. I'll give an example. So for example, if someone goes to a polling unit and they do ballot stuffing, the penalty for that is 500,000 naira, and then maybe 6 months imprisonment. Just imagine if you amend the constitution and you see, if you go to a polling unit and you stuff a ballot or you do anything that is wrong in that place, you'd have to pay a fine of not less than 20 million or 50 million, and you can spend 15 years in prison. It now means that as someone who wants to fight for democracy, you can actually take someone to court, and you know that the punishment that would happen at the end of the day, if they're convicted, is a reasonable punishment. Right now, if you take someone to court for doing what they do, ballot stuffing, all you get is the slapping. It is 500,000 naira, and one politician that sponsored them can pay for that, and 6 months in prison. Go to prison and spend your time in prison, and you know what happens in our prison system. But when you make the consequence for disrupting elections very, very severe as murder, you can start reforming our elections. So we need to strengthen that law, so that way civil society organizations, non-profits can have like a team of lawyers, and their job is to collect evidence to prosecute people who commit electoral offense. So, for example, I had a story of a couple of people who came to a polling unit and shot a shotgun and shot at the air, and everyone was the polling was and dispersed everyone. Imagine that person is prosecuted and they are sent to jail for 15 years. I think that would be a lesson for other people who want to practice that. So there's a consequence for that. Now, we also need to, in that reform, with reforming the constitution, now amend how we appoint INEC members and resident electoral commissioners. Remove the hand of the executive. The executive should not be involved in terms of how we elect who will become INEC chairman or Rex. So that way they don't get to install their party members as Rex or INEC chairman. And then we now need to make INEC's budget a first line item in the consolidated revenue fund. Meaning, just the same way when we collect tax on all of that, there's a fund for INEC that's set aside. So INEC is not held back by the hanky-panky of the executive and the legislature. There's a fund automatically set aside for elections. And then we also need to unbundle INEC. INEC is a very powerful institution. We need to unbundle it. We need to have a commission responsible for electoral for registering voters. So it's an ongoing affair. We have to have on that commission responsible for trying electoral offenses, and then you have the one that's responsible for what currently do, which is run elections. So amending the constitution is very, very important. I didn't want to go into detail in terms of so many amendments. There are quite a number of many amendments that needs to happen. So, for example, where you have a situation whereby a governor or a president would prevent other opposition parties from gaining access to media airwaves, or blocking or preventing them from running ads on TV during elections, you can put in the constitution that any media organization that carries out that process will be fined 200 million. So there are so many amendments. Now, once we've amended the constitution, what other things can we do to actually improve our elections in terms of the operational framework? One thing we could do is we need to work on the cost of elections, improve the cost of elections. We need to be more intentional about how we increase the efficiency of elections, because one of the things we've realized is that when you start pushing for INEC reform, the obvious thing the obvious argument would be, if you try to make INEC a lot more safe and secure and improve our elections, it's going to cost us so much money. It's a lie, right? You can actually improve INEC at the same time reduce the cost of elections. How can you do that? Because the reality is that our elections the cost of running elections has increased over time. I mean, year in, year out, the cost of running an election has increased. For example, 1999, we spent 1.5 billion naira. If we are going to adjust it for inflation, that was $27 million. And the cost per voter, per registered voter that voted in that election was $0.9. In 2019, in 2023, we spent $663 million. To put this in context, in 1999, we had 30 million voters. In 2023, where we spent $663 million, we have 24 million voters that voted. It means that we spent $26 per voter. So we need to improve the cost of elections. And how do we improve the cost of elections? There are different things we could do to sort of like improve, improve reform, improve the cost of elections. So what are things that we can actually do to improve the cost of election? So the first thing we can actually do is when it comes to technology, we can reduce the cost of the cost we spend when it comes to technology. And how do we do that? By involving more local experts to play a critical role in designing these systems. Instead of importing some of these things from abroad, China, you name them, and engaging external expertise, how do we start engaging local professionals? Then how do we also streamline registration? Why do we always have to register for PVC every now and then? When you have NIN, you have BVN. Why can't these things be used as a sign or a tool that we could use to vote in an election? Doing that alone, you've eliminated the cost of printing PVCs. You've eliminated the cost of all the whole logistics that has to do with distributing PVCs and all of that. You've eliminated that already. We can save at least 30 billion naira by just fixing these two things, getting Nigerians to build solutions for election software in Nigeria and eliminating PVC and using NIN and BVN if possible. That's technology reforms. You can also optimize election logistics because a lot of the cost that goes into election has to do with logistics. INEC can operationally leverage AI and blockchain technology to sort of like manage the way that it deploys materials. You can predict areas that would have high demand because of using several signals. You can cost. You can also reduce the cost of security-related expenditures, how much we spend in terms of paying for security or ensuring that the election centers are secure. And what can we do? You can have community-based election security monitors. So instead of having deploying the police, just like how we had civilian GTFs to combat terrorism in the north, you can actually ask communities and say, you know what, bring your best men, your best minds, and let them collaborate with the police to secure a polling unit. And that would reduce the costs. You can also set up early warning systems. There are areas that you know that will be prone to violence. So you cannot dedicate your best force to handle those areas. You can also leverage surveillance drones, AI surveillance drones. Drones are becoming very cheap and affordable. We can leverage those things to actually improve security in elections. And then if we now do the right thing, so we have what we call integrate what we call chain of custody systems. Chain of custody systems has to do with the idea that there's a way of tracking the people who handle election materials from the place where these are printed to when it gets to collation center. And there's a digital system for managing that whole process, that strong chain of custody. So when something goes wrong, you know that something has happened. So for example, in India, where you stop pulling ballot materials before you vote on election day, that room or that place, it will be made up of several padlocks or keys. INEC official will have their own padlock there. The different parties will also lock that same padlock. And on the day of elections, all the different parties must be there to unlock their padlock to release those materials. And so you know that if someone's padlock is broken, if your padlock is broken, it means that process is already tainted already. So we need to have systems of knowing where something would go wrong and being able to track that, because that would not reduce the cost of litigation. Because if we conduct an election and from every system that has happened, it is so free and fair, people will not go to court. And so the amount of money we spend going to court, which INEC could also have, because INEC actually has to spend money to defend itself in court, pay lawyers and all of that, That's on that cost of election, that cost that would have reduced. Then the cost of human resource training and capacity. INEC spends billions of naira every election training polling unit agents. Just imagine if we introduce that whole thing they are spending to train, we introduce that in universities. So for you to graduate from to graduate any course in Nigeria, part of your final year course is that you need to learn how to become a polling unit agent, because NYSC students are usually used as a polling unit agents, right? So why can't that be outsourced to universities? It becomes a class that is taught, and so that way you finish and then you're certified. So the universities can take over that task, and so you know that every single graduate is a polling unit, is trained to manage elections, and it does not have to spend money to train anybody. Then you can also involve the private sector, right? And allow political parties, allow people to go and learn how to so I can actually, for example, pay to go and learn how to become a polling unit official. So I want to serve my country. I can actually go and enroll in a certificate program and get a certification. And maybe the skills I get in that certificate program can be used for other jobs. Maybe I want to work as a compliance officer in a particular field. Just having a certificate as an INEC trained certified official can add to my point in other job prospects in the private sector. So these are some ideas. So there are different cost-effective ways you can reduce the costs of elections. And so if we're able to operationally improve the cost of elections through different innovations, and also in terms of improving the integrity of elections, some of the ideas or strategies that INEC can actually employ to improve integrity or strengthen the integrity of elections, we need to fix BVAS and IREV. Fix BVAS. Can we deploy AI and blockchain for election monitoring? So it's a lot more. Mandate that live results transmission happens. Strong chain of custody protocols and tracking. You know who is with what at what point in time. And when an official does the wrong thing in that process, they are going to face jail time. So it's not a question of, oh, I didn't know. No, you are given a job to do this. You are given a job to move materials from point A to point B. According to the system, at 11 o'clock, you didn't log in that you move it to this point. What happened? If you don't have a very strong reason for that, you're going to jail because it's in the Constitution. So then when we now combat vote, so how do we combat vote suppression and electoral violence? So we need to now have like an independent election security task force design. That is a system in collaboration with all security agencies, all coming together, working with civilians to monitor elections and hold those accountable. Strong legal penalties for vote suppression. Anybody caught rigging an election, 15 years in prison. Any politician caught rigging an election, right? You are going to jail for 15 years and you are banned for running for public office for 20 years. The moment you have this in the Constitution, it now becomes it's like committing murder to manipulate our election. And then there's a need for long-term structural reforms and things like we need to start thinking of how do we involve diaspora in terms of voting? How do we engage more young people, engage more citizens? Because at the end of the day, when you now implement these reforms and citizens refuse to show up to vote, then you're in trouble. So I've said a couple of things. There's so many things that I've talked about. And the question is, okay, where do I start? How do I take action? How do I reform my neck? It's very easy. It's very easy. The illusion that we have is that we think that we don't have power. We think that we are voiceless. The reality is that we only have 10,000 elected positions in the office. So the people that control this nation, that make decisions on our behalf, they are 10,000 in number. They are elected into office. Our House of Rep members, 108 House of Senate members, I think around 360 or so number of House of Rep, they are the ones. And we are over 200 million people. And so it's so cowardly for us to sit down here and feel like we are powerless, like we don't have any, we can't make a change. We can't do something. How can we do something? What we can do is first, we need to engage. But we need to engage strategically. It's not engage with noise, shouting, and just, no. engage strategically with clear-cut demands. And so what we've done in the next couple of weeks, we'll release this report, is that you're engaging with a request, very simple request. Implement the Fix INEC, Fix Nigeria report, implement the Just Wiser report. Imagine 50 million Nigerians, 10 million taxpayers, 50 million poor people who have been affected by bad governance. And all they are saying is very simple: implement these reforms. Ask for INEC to be independent, electronic transmission of results, strict punishment for electoral offenders. And you're engaging your House of Rep members, because they're the ones that will make these laws, pass these laws. They're the ones. Engage them. Send them a letter. Organize focus group conversations. Organize town halls. Rally your people. Sign petitions. Disturb the hell out of them every now and then. When are you? And now, if they refuse, you make it a point that is the reason. If they refuse to take action on electoral reforms, it means that they don't mean well for Nigeria. And that means come 2027 elections, you're not going to vote for them. It means they don't deserve to be in that position that they're in. We now make the electoral reform a one single issue in 2027 election. That it's a major issue, because the reality is that when you reform elections, it doesn't matter who becomes the president. If tomorrow APC wins, Labour Party wins, PDP wins, everybody will be happy, because you know that that person won free, fair and square, and we all need to fall behind that person. Without reforming the elections, without holding them accountable and pushing for this. So when you're complaining about bad governance on Twitter, you're complaining about, oh, dollar is crashing, Naira is crashing, oh, insecurity. Just leave those things. They are just a symptom of the main problem. Reform the elections. When you reform it, and it now means that they don't have the power to manipulate the process to go back into power, you will see they will start working for you. They will fix the roads. They will fix the power. They will fix the economy, because they know that the next election, there is no INEC chairman or resident electoral commissioner or anybody in the system that they can, one way or the other, bully, threaten, manipulate, allegedly, or whatever, to manipulate the process. They know that there is no tout they can mobilize, because the touts are afraid that if they do that, they're going to jail. So a single issue, if you're in this space and you want to ask yourself, how do you change Nigeria? How do you change us from where we are right now? Is that your main message for 2027 election is not to say, oh, I want the best leader, I want this person to come and rule, or this person, or we need to get Tinubu out, or whatever it is. Just fix our elections. When we fix that even playing field, you fix Nigeria. You've built a new place that would unlock the best of us. Like, the best people would know that when they run for office, they don't need to become a billionaire. They don't need to have all the money in the world. The technocrats can run for office because they know that they don't need to have the whole world to run, because INEC is now free and fair. They have a shot. INEC, for over 24 years since we transitioned, has been a force that prevented us from making progress as a nation. We need to demand for reforms. And what do we need to do? Sign petitions, engage your House of Rep members, rally your base, rally your communities, or rally your movements, whatever movement you're a part of. Rally everybody and say, let us fight for the implementation of the Just Wiser report and the Fix INEC and Fix Nigeria report. It has all the information that is needed. So I'm going to be distributing this report very shortly, so that we can actually see. It's a very detailed, over 900-page report, close to 900-page report that really details what we need to do. I just had to summarize some things just for this space. Thank you very much. Chukwudi.
Okay. Interesting. And I think I wish we could all just give a round of applause for you, because it's not easy to find the strength and the energy to commit to such a task. And like you said, quite an extensive report. And I think a major part of it is the new ideas that are coming up. So things like, if we are going to use NYC people to conduct elections, then why not we integrate that process of learning? Because what you most times see is that the whole training for NYSC core members to participate in election is usually done in a rush in about 34 days or so thereabout, and there's a whole rush of it. Some people would not even engage properly and all of that. So what about if we make this thing become one of the criteria before graduation, that okay, this is part of a course, maybe one of the GS courses in the various universities that students must fulfill in terms of knowing how to conduct elections and be able to engage in civic duties and things like that. So that's, I think it's quite a new one. And if we look at it in the spectrum of faith, in terms of on the economic side of faith, the resources that INEC dispels can also go to the university and make some impact there as well. So I think that's the major part for me, is the fact that there are new ideas that are coming up. It's not just the same rolling out of previous ideas. So it shows that a lot of thought went into this. So very much commendable. Without much ado, we'll just try to see how we engage. I think I've been reading through the charts and I've seen some beautiful comments in terms of people asking certain things. So somebody has said something, and just give me 1 minute. Let me just pull them up. So I think I've seen something from Lady Betsy Makiridolu. That's very honored to have you on this space as well, joining us today. It is really, and she's talking about I like what you're doing, Train. To begin with, Nigerians must insist that the sitting president should not appoint INEC chairman. Let the responsibility rest on the shoulders of the National Assembly. Okay, so things like that in terms of, and you talked about the political manipulation of these appointments and things like that. So we would want to just try to bring in a few persons into this conversation. I think I'll first of all start with our always able to go, ready to go, Madam Aisha Yusuf. If you have the mic, just tell us what you think in terms of this report and the way forward. How do we engage this report as citizens when this report is fully out, in terms of how do we engage as citizens? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think thank you also, Century, for that, very robust report. There are so many things out there. I think one of the things we need to fully understand is the fact that we've agonized for so much. It's really time for us to organize, and so citizens must be willing to put themselves forth for us to get these things done. It's not going to be one person, two people. We all have to collectively agree that we will be doing something when we are called upon. If it's the one that we need to put this thing out, I know there are some other electoral reform process that are going on at the National Assembly. Can we all meet up? Can we also meet these people, talk about what are the things that can be added or not, and they take it. There's the one that we begin to meet with INEC. It's the one that we need to create awareness, educate people. At the end of the day, someone just has to pick something. That's what I believe the street parliament is all about. It's not just about agonizing. Now it's also about organizing. Because if you're talking about the 2027 election, going into the 2027 election without a major reform is going to be, hugely disastrous. Reform in terms of both, reform from the National Assembly, an electoral reform, changing the way INEC are doing that is, and also in reforming the attitudes of the people, reforming the way people are taking this election. Like I'd mentioned earlier, we must go above and beyond that place where we are waiting for candidates, want to spend their money, want to do campaign all around, want to protect the votes and all of that. We also must, be responsible for ensuring that whatever vote it is that we give at the end of the day, it's also counted. So these are the things that, so let's put ourselves at that place where we are called upon. I think also it's important, Century, for you to also have, for there to be like a place where people can say right now, somebody right now on this space says, I want to be part of this, I want to be part of the reform, is there a place where their data can be taken, their information, so that when it's time, find out who has the capacity to do what, and be able to assign them, to those things to do. First and foremost, it's not going to be an easy run. There's a whole lot. It's going to be a very tough one. And sometimes you're going to wonder, why are you doing this? Why are you not just out there, just forgetting about any other thing, instead of here trying to work on getting the right thing to be done? You will have those questions that you question yourself. But at the end of the day, staying or tenacity is what we are looking at. Who is going to be the last man, woman standing? Who are going to be the last people standing? And say giving up will not be an option. These are very key things. Also, other things that, for example, if there are other things that we feel that should also be part of the electoral reforms, let's begin to let's also put this out there so that they'll all be added and collated. For me, personally, I like the fact where we say the burden of proof should be on INEC. INEC has been giving money to run election, and if there's anyone complain that the election was not well done, INEC should be the ones to come forward and be asked to defend that election, that they have done, and show Nigerians that indeed they did have a free, fair, credible election. For me, I think in terms of when we're also looking at the electoral reforms, is to have something where I think the National Assembly needs to do this. Judges, the judiciary should no longer have the final say to say who is it that won election. We should remove that power from the hands of the judiciary, because now it's becoming, many people are voting, millions of people will vote, then some 3, 4, 5, 6 people sit with some white cloth on their head and black gown, and they are telling us, oh, this is who should be, whether it's governor or it's president, it's House of Rep member, whatever it is. That power should be taken away from the judiciary. What the judiciary should have instead is that they should call for either for there to be a recount. Tell INEC, bring all these votes that you say you've done, wherever it is, because INEC are supposed to have all these things. The ballot, they go away with the ballot papers. Bring the ballot papers, come and recount them. If the nation needs to spend the next 1 week recounting one by one, manually, let everybody see. Bring it all to one place. Let it be done. Let there be a recount. And from that recount, you are able to see how many votes were done for anyone. So for me, I would say one of the reform, take away that power where the judiciary is able to call and say this election has been won by such or so person. So there should be a recount, or there should be another re-election to say the former election that was done, there's a problem with this. If at a certain stage, there's a stage where they should say go and recount it, and next should come out. They sit down, since all the ballot papers are still there, recount them again. Then you can see who is it that won. The other one will be to have, something to say that go back and recount the votes. These votes are not, go back and redo the election. So you call for another election, whether a rerun or everything to be done again. That's one. We need, in terms of the electoral reforms, can we get to a place where every vote is done on the same day? It's 5 on the ballot paper, put out 5 boxes, put out 5 boxes out there, ensure that whatever it is, all the election, president, governor, House of Rep, House of Senator, House of Assembly, state houses of assembly, I think that makes them about 5, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, let everything be done in the same day. Why are we wasting money? First of all, we don't have money. Why are we having to waste money and say that, oh, we're going to go back, and come back again for some election to be done? No, so let's get everything done. When we're also talking about the electoral reform, some of the things that we should be looking into also is the fact that right now it is very difficult for us to recall. I don't think it's going to be difficult because the lawmakers will not want to do something that will put them out, but we need to push for this, and citizens' voices should matter. Where we say it is no longer saying that 50% of the registered voters are what can be used to recall someone. No, because most of the people don't get 50% of the registered voters. So why are we recalling you with 50% of registered voters that we are not even sure that they are real people? Remember, there was a time when we had a lot of time where people, political parties would just go and register somebody. You see one person alone having up to 50 voters card. It's your name, for example, Aisha Yusufu. You see Aisha Yusuf, Aisha Yusuf, yes, you know, they'll just change the name and play around with the name. You see one person having that much, until that was where we now got to the place where we are having all of these what's this thing that the IREF, the beavers, you know, verification before you vote. So there needs to be a situation whereby it should be 50% of the votes that you got. So if you are a senator and you scored 300,000 votes to go to the Senate, if your people want to recall you, 150,000 of those people that voted you, you'll be able to say, oh, God, we don't like what you're doing, come back home. So in that way, you know, you have that power to hold over them where you are able, you know, to do a recall for people to come back in. There are many other, you know, reforms out there. So let's put all of this together and begin to see what are the things that we all can do and ensure that it works. The thing is that everybody must participate. We cannot just leave this thing and say, oh, there are a few people who are doing it and we should allow them to do it. There is power in numbers. And what we've had is that most times people think that it's not their business. Politics is everybody's business. Governance is everybody's business. Because at the end of the day, we are all affected, you know, by all of these things that are happening. So I think I will just stop here so that I don't hog the mic too much. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, and very brilliant submissions and a lot of ideas. And I think a major part is where you called people to action. It's that everybody, you need to be part of this process. I think we have gone past the time where we sit in our homes and think that it's somebody's duty to be an activist in our regard, to be able to continue to champion good governance and all of this. We must all act. We must all be part of it. So this space is going to be held every Sunday, the Street Parliament every Sunday at 7 p.m. Nigerian time. Please and please try to stay in tune with us if you, and like we mentioned, we want to build a community of active citizens and collaborate amongst ourselves to be able to achieve the goals we set out for ourselves. We don't just want people coming here to ventilate. We want to be able to take actions. We want to be able to pull these things together and take critical actions. If you look at the Jumbotron, just one of the summary from the last space we had is out there, where we outlined the key takeaways from the conversation, and we also talked about the action point. There are 7 action points in terms of how we move forward, and we would over time, the next few weeks, start talking about how we're going to engage. Critical things, if you know you have any particular skill set that you think would help drive this engagement going forward, you can reach out in the DM and we'll be able to engage in terms of how we can all work together. There are going to be, we don't have all the ideas, those are myself, Century, and other people behind the scene as well. We don't have all the ideas, but we believe that if you have any idea that you think can help us propagate this space, please do well to drop a DM and we'll be able to look into it. In the next few weeks, we will try to create formal channels of engagement. Century, as you've heard, has worked on the electoral reforms in terms of INEC. And if you know that you want to be aware when this is going to drop, please make sure you follow him so that you'll be able to know when he drops this report. This month of February, we will consider it more of an election reforms month, considering that the elections happen in February. So we want to do a lot of discussions around this conversation and try to build a lot of actions around this. Please and please engage, engage, engage. And I'll just need to pass the mic to a few more persons. We have about 30 minutes to wrap up the space. So if you want to speak, if you're in the speaker session, please just raise your hand so that I know that you're going to speak. I will just create a queue. Before we go ahead, while I'm waiting for other people, I think John Bose has been here. I'll just bring you into this conversation because you've remained on the speaker session, so I assume you still have something to say. And after you, Rhoda, she's just left the space. Okay, John Bose, are you there? Are you happy to speak? Okay, John Bose, if you're not there. So I think Adamu, you have your hands up. So just tell us, in terms of listening to what Century has said, in terms of the kind of thought processes, in terms of INEC reforms, what is the way forward? I think I would like us to speak more in regards of how do we get citizens' participation to drive these reforms? What can we do to ensure that people participate actively? That is where I would like your submissions to center around. So we've got Adamu, after Adamu, Adeniji. We go next, Felix Elijah, and then Big Gift. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Am I audible?
Yep.
Okay. I want to thank Street Parliament for this wonderful program, this citizen awareness program. The problem we are having is conversations like this. Majority of Nigerians try to run away from conversations like this because we have this approach of doing things like this. We have this fire brigade approach. And I'm very, very much happy that we're having this conversation. It's about 700 and something days to the 2027 election. Is not far. And these are the type of conversation we should be having. On electoral reform, I think we are not doing enough to address most of those problems. Like what Setron have said, and other speakers, even my Madam Aisha. There is need for us to bring our demands, just as we are talking about those issues, bring them together. Right. See, let me tell you, the National Assembly will never, ever, they will never, ever implement an electoral reform that will not return them back to power. Even if they want to do an electoral reform, they would do it in a way that they would always want to beat around it so that they can, all their cronies can come back to power. So as active citizens, what we should do is for us to come together, make demands, write to the National Assembly, consistently engage them. Because if you don't engage this set of clowns that we currently have, I'm sorry to use that word, that we have at the National Assembly, we are not going to make headway. We're still talking about INEC. We have few months of the election. Nobody's talking about electoral reforms. Be it as it may, even if we have the electoral reforms, from my own experience, from what I have seen in past elections as an active player, I don't think Nigerians are even interested in the process. The few that are even interested in the process are just doing it just for doing sake. So like I said, we need to deploy new technology. We need more young people to consistently come together, put it in writing, submit it to the National Assembly, consistently go there to see how these things are done, create conversations around them. We have the traditional media, the social media. They have the traditional media. Young Nigerians can actually do a lot with the social media that we have to create awareness, continue to put pressure on these people to see how we can have an holistic electoral reforms that can at least give us an election that Nigerians can be proud of, to say, okay, we have elected people that we voted for. Like, these people actually won the election. I don't mind, even if it's Mr. A or Mr. Z, whether the person is not my candidate. If elections are free and fair, that is when we have a good country. Now we're having housing deficit in Nigeria, over 20 million housing deficit in Nigeria. A lot of young Nigerians are homeless. They don't know how to begin their house journey. The economy is bad. Fuel is high. All of this boils down to leadership. So if we are not able to get leadership right, how can we solve the problem of the country? So this conversation is very, very important. And I'm happy that we're having this conversation at this time. So I encourage us, where we need to do more is put most of those things in writing, have a group, even if it's not physical, have an online pressure group where we come together, consistently, hammer on those points, align it with the people, align it, send it out to our various representatives. if we consistently do that with more in the media, I am sure the National Assembly will budge. If we have a lot of requests from street parliament, for example, like this young Nigerians saying, oh, we want the National Judicial Council to appoint INEC chairman, or we want the National Assembly to appoint INEC chairman. We want the training of ad hoc staff to be students from university. We want the announcement of results. The problem with the electoral system in Nigeria is the rack centers, where they call them collation center. We can actually abolish the collation center, where we send results from the polling unit and it goes straight to the server and you see it. So why the collation? By the time the result gets to the collation center, you can't even get there. If you don't have the security is so tight, they allow the people that will win the election to get it. So why not abolish it? Have you seen collection center in the United States, physical ones? No, everything is done online. If central bank can tell you, oh, you can do all your transactions online, transfer millions and everything, why can't we vote online? Why can't everything be done online? These are the type of conversation we should be having with them. And I'm happy that at this moment, I'm so happy. So whatever in any way you people in any way you people want us to contribute as media professionals, we would lend a voice. We would be there. If it's to go to National Assembly, submit a report physically to them and say, oh, Nigerians, we have done our part. Call everybody. Everybody would watch. This is the electoral reform. And by the time we consistently hammer on those points every day, this report is before the National Assembly, then Nigerians will not start asking their representatives. There is a report there about doing a free about the electoral reform. Why haven't you passed it? If we are not having this kind of conversation, I don't think we are going to move elsewhere. We need to be more consistent. We need to be specific in our demand. The specificity in our demand is key. You don't just make a demand for a change when you are not specific about the things you want. We want, this is what we want, this is how we want it done, and there should be a timeline. There should be a timeline for the whole process to go through and the new electoral reform to be passed. I'm happy. I'm happy we're having this conversation. This is my first time on this space, and I assure you that every Sunday, if I'm free, I'll be available. And if there's anywhere you feel you want our support, our doors are open. I would always be here to support and lend my voice for a better Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for that submission, and thank you for also putting yourself out there and raising your hand to be able to be part of any process that will be coming up. Really, really great move by you. Century, can you hear me?
Look, please, can I say something?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mother Misha.
Oh, okay. So I heard Adamu. I just wanted to say something. You know, sometimes, and I totally agree with him when he said that the National Assembly will not normally do something that will be against their own thing. But you know, sometimes things work in such mysterious way, and we have a National Assembly that are not very attentive. I can't remember the last electoral act they did. There was something that they did against them so that they didn't realize it was there in the act. You know, sometimes these things are briefed, are put together. They don't read them in depth. I think that's the one where they had said if you are an elected, you cannot be a delegate. Also, I can't remember. Analo Chukudi, help me out with that.
You cannot be a delegate in the election if you already occupy an office, which was a big problem for most of them. Yeah.
Yes, which they didn't realize at that time. So sometimes this thing, you put them out there in the process of them, because there's so many things that they read, because they're not also very observant and go through, they might just miss them and have them. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. The thing, I think, as much as these people, which is why we brought this space and call it street parliament, right? Because most times we fail to understand that these people are actually there to do our bidding, not their own bidding. So I hear you, whereby we already know that, yes, most times they are very selfish. They want to do things for themselves without actually doing this. But this is where our duty comes in. This is where we are feeling that we are not holding them to account to do our own bidding, which, like we've seen in this space. So this is the second time we've held this space. And we'll find out that when we say, okay, your constituency, you see people struggling that they don't even know their constituency. So if you don't know your constituency, how do you know your House of Rep member? Not to talk about even going to the extra mile of getting their phone numbers and having their email address, or even know where their office is located to be able to engage them. So these are things that we hope that with this space, I think part of the research, hopefully by next week, will be to be able to, I think there's a website where we have that. But the thing is, I know that most of them do not update their phone numbers regularly. But there are ways that we can do. This is why social media, I did hear when somebody talked about this internet being a problem. But the truth is, social media has done a whole lot of good. Social media has helped us in organizing. Social media has helped us to pull resources together. Social media has helped us to brainstorm together. So we would try to utilize all of this in going forward. So if anybody knows like a platform, I know there's a platform, I would just need to check it up and see if it's still up to date at the moment. I think it's Order Nigeria, Order Paper also. If it's still up to date, we'll pull it up and try to get people to start seeing their senatorial, their federal constituency, and we can be able to engage these people. So that sentiment, I do understand is valid, but the fact is, our purpose is to change that. We want a National Assembly that is representative of the people's will going forward. Thank you. So I will just move the mic a bit forward. Century, do you want to contribute to this conversation at this point?
Yeah, just to talk about action is that this month is a month that we're going to be talking about elections and also acting as well. So I think by next week we would have the report. We'll have the report. The report is going to be ready for public consumption. There's a first draft of the report, and then we'll start engaging people who want to be a part of that move or that push for the execution of the report. People like Adamu, who wants to contribute towards driving that process, and anyone wherever you are in the country, in the world, that want to contribute towards that process in any way you can, would just sort of like push for these reforms. So we'll take that conversation forward. I think this next week's space will be more about execution. How do we move from talk to action? So a lot of that is going to be will revolve around how do we move from talking about the problems, we know the solution to some degree, how do we start getting things done? Yeah, so those things will be communicated from during next week's space. So look forward to joining that space. More information will be shared with you on that space. Thank you.
Okay, so that's very important. And the point is, we are going to act. We want to act. And if you follow the space, I believe that so far so good. You can see our intentions. We're very, very intentional about what we're doing here, and we want you to be part of it. Please and please, just think about ways. We're not in your heart, but we believe that there is some way you can be part of this process. So just reflect deeply from what you've heard so far and tell yourself, how can I be part of this? We're open to all ideas. We're open to all thought processes. And collectively, we would make a stance and a difference in our country, Nigeria. So I think I will just bring in Felix, Elijah, and after you, Adeniji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Street Parliament. I hope everybody can hear me. And it's nice being on this platform. And I also appreciate Ms. Aisha Yusufu. I follow you on YouTube and all of your updates on things that go on in Nigeria. Yeah, I just want to start with this statement that 2023 election, something happened to the people. They took away the power of the people and the power of the people to make decisions, to make their choices. And if you look at subsequent election after that, that has continued. In fact, the process has metamorphosized into different dimensions that they already developed different ways in, taking away more power from the people. And the issue is, how do we get our power back? And if you look at the different dimensions of our electoral system, starting from INEC and looking at reform in INEC, You look at the reform in police. How much of the police do you want to be involved in our election? The reform in the law and that guides the election. One thing that even surprises me the most is people that snatch ballot boxes, that threaten people, that do all sort of things. But like the way it happened in Lagos, nothing was done to them. Even till now, they are moving around the streets and they are being prepared for the next election. There are a lot of, in quotes, they call them thugs, and they are like celebrity thugs right now, everywhere, and they are waiting for the next election. And look at how people were disenfranchised in Lagos. They were stopped from even partaking in election, bringing Oro, bringing this, bringing that, to stop people from being involved. We can say a lot of things, but if all of these things are not included in whatever reform we are doing, these guys are still going to come up with whatever they want to do, because it is not just about the reform. Even what we have presently in our electoral system, if it is properly implemented in the last election, we won't be where we are. And then the other part that needs to be reformed also is the judiciary. How do we get the judiciary, to do what they need to do? What level of power do they have? Just like Mr. Aisha said, that we should stop them. We should stop them from, being the one to give the final verdict on our elections. Rather, if they feel that the election is not free and fair, they should go to call INEC to recount. And then the burden of proof should be on INEC. That should even be the first thing. The burden of proof should move away from those that petition it to INEC. Because how can you conduct an election and you expect someone else to come and prove that your election is right or wrong? So it doesn't make sense. So that all of those things have to be things that should be done, and they should be done pari passu. It shouldn't be something that should be done, we are working on this, we're working on that. Because if all of these things are not changed, I tell you, people will not be motivated. Because the motivation we had for the last election was because of the Electoral Act, a new electoral that was signed, and the use of IREF. And we can see now that even the IREF is not respected. Even in subsequent elections, we see what happened in different states, how the laws are just, manipulated things, Till now, we don't even know, we don't even understand which is right. We don't know what is right from wrong. So what am I saying? I'm not going over the problems again, but if we don't look at those problems, we may not be able to bring out a meaningful solution. For those that are snatching ballot boxes, and for those that are, these thugs that are working with different politicians and all of that, how do we deal with those people? How do we enforce that these people are brought to book? Where and at what point do we draw the line that this is an election fraudulent activity going on? How do we do it? So these are questions that we should think about, because once the power is taken away from the people, because right now I will tell you that Nigerians are helpless, and we need to do a lot to be able to get this power back. A lot of people are even more poorer than they used to be. The strength that they have before, they don't have it anymore. They would rather use their strength to go and take care of their family. They use their strength to look for what they will eat in a day, rather than now thinking of another reform. So all of these things are just, a lot of things have gone, and this is actually what the politicians want to achieve. And they are happy when people are down. So we really need to do a lot of work. I appreciate this work, because a little drop, as it goes, it's going to become something mighty. This is how revolution starts. But we are looking at the peaceful revolution. We have to also look at the police. How do we reform? How much should the police be involved? They say that, at the polling station, police should not hold guns. But you see all of these ballot box snatchers. They come with all forms of ammunitions. So what will the police do that doesn't have any guns? So all of these things are things we have to think in and out and see what is applicable. in our community in Nigeria as a whole. I don't really know how much of solution I can offer right now, but what I think is once everybody is involved and we're able to work more with, get the lawmakers to sign some of these things into law, and we enforce the law one way or the other. Too much power we have them given to the president, even to select whoever he wants as INEC president, and he feels like INEC chairman, and he feels like he is obliged to do whatever the president say. Then that is not an election; that is a selection. So the process of selecting INEC representative should not be done by any political party. It should be something that should come from the grassroots, from the community. They should be the one to nominate people of credible character. It can even be, it can be secretaries of different organizations like that are not even known. You just look at those people of very verified character, and then you nominate them to such positions. So those are the things that we should be looking at. Not that, oh, this person is belongs to this party, we can get him into INEC and all of those kind of things. I don't know. That's just
All right.
what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for that submission. And I'll just move the mic so I'll just get a lot of people in. Then I will summarize at the end of the day. But brilliant submission in terms of, thank you for also extending to the fact that we need to look at the reform beyond INEC as well, like looking at the police and all of that, which I think comes to the operational side of things of the elections, right? Hopefully, let's see what Century's report has. Unfortunately, he had to leave the space because of something came up. But we will see what that report has in full detail, and we would all contribute to that discussion. Adeniji, okay, do you have the mic? Please, I don't know. The bell, I don't know. The bell is having, I don't know. I'm trying to ring the bell sometimes. I'm struggling with it. So please and please just try to be succinct so that I can just, I don't have to interfere. Okay?
Okay, good evening. So I'll be fast. So one of the major issues that we still have to talk about is this disenfranchisement. During the last election, almost 93 million people registered for the elections, but the turnout was less than 30 million, if I get my data right. And one of the major issues was voters' cards. I don't understand the concept of having to go to a INEC office to register to vote for an election and having to wait for almost 4, 6, 7 weeks to get the voters' card to vote, and you go back to the INEC office and they keep postponing it. They do this over time, and it's becoming almost, especially when it is approaching election period. It is very, very impossible to access a voter's card, except you have to pay someone, you have to bribe someone to help you check whether you can get your voter's card. And even at that time, there is no guarantee. You are not sure whether you are going to get it. And when they say it is not available yet, you don't have any choice. You go back home. Then election day comes, you suddenly realize your name is on the back, your name is out there pasted, but your voter's card itself, it can't be found. We are already in that era where we are phasing out the use of ID cards, and we have digital footprints now. So why are we still currently focused on that voter's card? It is one of the major things that is different, that is causing people not to vote, that is not giving adequate representation enough. Of the 93 million people that voted, less than 30 million that registered, less than 30 million. That speaks to the fact that no matter how much we prove the credence that yes, we had a massive turnout in 2023, it shows that there was still a poor turnout, because the president had 36% elected the president to rule over 250 million people. That does not speak enough. We need to figure out a way to phase out this voters card of it, because you already have BVNs, you have NIN, just with your fingerprints, they easily detect who you are. Your digital footprint is already out there. So why should voters card be a thing that it is a must that if you have not collected a voters card, you are not allowed to vote? Why should that be? We should look to that. Then I would like to speak towards INEC too. There should be a law mandating INEC a week immediately after the election is finished. They should do a detailed presentation of how the whole election process went. Because as much as we are still talking about, yes, you have to go to court to fight, it is very difficult most especially during presidential elections, to upturn the president's votes in Nigeria because of the whole processes and the whole amount of weeks required to gather your evidences. And sometimes INEC delays. They are not forthcoming with evidences that might help the other political party present its case very well. It becomes difficult. And once the required number of days you are allowed to file the petition, once it expires, you are not allowed to bring in new evidence. And that was one of the major things that happened during the 2023 presidential elections, because new evidence were not allowed to be brought in. And the time required for that evidence had already expired. What happened? Because INEC were not forthcoming or were not willing to present the evidence early enough. So it should also be done. And the third thing we have to advocate for, as much as we keep saying this, the judiciary is still not an independent arm. It is still not independent. The governor allocates, the president allocates, the president appoints. How you spend your monies, it is the president that does that for you. They don't do that for the legislature. They don't do that for the executive. But for the judiciary, it comes to the judiciary, you start seeing the FCT minister doing outcasts the judiciary. It's an insult. We call it the three arms of government. But no, the judiciary is not independent. And as long as the president keep appointing the judiciary, keep appointing the judges, and keep paying their salaries, nothing will change. You can't expect to bite the hand that feeds you. No, it will never happen. So as much as we keep hoping that, yes, maybe one way or the other, it is possible that the Supreme Court judge upturns the election, it is still laughable, because at the end of the day, the president can wake up one day and decide that the chief, the CGN or the Supreme Court justice is no longer fit for the office, and one way or the other, it phased out. We all saw it happen during Buhari's tenure. And so what else happened? After the whole issue, he was pushed out of office, and we later discovered that the reason why he was pushed out of office was purely for politics. What happened? Nobody went to court. Nobody was punished. And we still speak about electoral violence too. We have not seen any credible punishment. Nobody has really been punished. As far back as I remember, electoral violence has been happening over time. People have been stealing ballot boxes over time. But who really has been punished for that offense? None. Nobody has been punished. So until all these things are looked at, there is adequate punishment for election violence, stringent punishment, and is really classified, nothing will be done. The judiciary and INEC is forced to do a detailed presentation of how the election went, the process went. We might not even get to see a detailed election, a detailed process of how how votes comes in, who voted, what happened, why these votes were discredited. We might not get to see it after about almost a month or 3 months after the election. It should not be done. If we are going to the ballot boxes to cast our votes and we are trusting on INEC, because the amount of budget, the amount of money that is being poured into the into INEC's financial purse is enough to say they should be prepared. But over time, we keep seeing glimpses, we keep seeing unpreparedness, and nobody is questioning. We need to also look at the budget of INEC. How are they spending this money? Where is this money going to? Because after all is said and done, another allocation will be done next year. And we go back again, we go to the ballots, and we see that there is not much difference. Nothing has changed yet. I really hope this year we intensify more on our efforts and we begin to probe critical sectors we should probe. Because with the way everything is going, if the INEC as an institution is not looked at, if the judiciary as an institution is not looked at, I doubt much will change, as much as we love to say it. Thank you. I hit the mic.
Yeah, thank you for that submission. And I like the area of the funding. We need to look more into our next funding, because where the money goes sometimes is where you see if they actually have true intentions and all of that. And a key thing here is that there are lots of thoughts, there are lots of submissions and ideas, and the most important thing is how do we act to ensure that these things come to reality. And like Century did mention earlier on, that it's a continuum. We must not be in despair that certain things have happened in 2023. But if we go back to 1999 and see, we'll see that there is a continuous improvement, and we should hope that this time around we are able to contribute to that improvement. So thank you very much for that. I just have one more speaker. Motive 1930, and I would have to wrap up a space. Motive 1930. Are you there? Okay. In your absence, Big Gift, are you there?
Hello,
Okay.
sir. Okay.
All right, Motive, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sheikh, for giving me this opportunity. I'm so much grateful. I want to mention two things, sir. Number one, we have an issue at hand, and this issue is this. We have allowed the criminals to hijack the system. Unfortunately, we have a deep state in our hands, and we've allowed the criminal to take over the all architecture of governance in Nigeria. And he has recruited his lapdogs, all put in all corners, institutionally, from the judiciary to the police force, to the executives, to our MDAs, NNPC, mention any of the parastatals which are used for cash cow in financing the shenanigans. That is number one, which is my background. But I have two solutions. The mistake we made in 2023 was we believed so much in the INEC. And INEC, I knew. My former handle, which was reported and I was arrested, was born out of what I said in that 2023. All what I said there played out. I told them, I said, look, the RF will not work. Forget it. They will not upload it. Because the guy that is coming understands the devious tactics. He understands the devious tactics. Even Lagos, where he comes from, he lost it. So a lot of their party members are not even coming out to vote. They didn't vote that day. So the problem is we had too much trust in the INEC. We're believing in the law. These are people that they are so devious. They are devils. They don't believe in laws. They don't believe in any rules. In every rule, they want to bend it to suit their own purpose. So now the solution is this. We must be able to come together and have international affiliations. Number one, if we don't have international affiliations, we cannot fight it. Forget it, sir. Forget it. These people are masterminds. They understand the antics. Few months to the election, you will see them bringing rice. They will reduce fuel by 50 naira or 100 naira. They will tell you there's a beans for so amount. They will tell you can buy yam for so amount, which is all propaganda. And they've been able to eat to our legacy media houses. They dish out things to them. They know how to camp them. They call them. They tell them, "We are Mr. This thing. Go and do this. This is what you should tell the public. This is what you should tell them through the radio station." And if you want to understand this, sir, through our legacy media, early morning riser program, normally you realize that all of them has almost similar topics. About 90% will say the same topic, and that's the same topic they will dish out to all of them. So what they are doing is that they are trying to play on our minds. They are trying to give us a narrative of what does not exist. You can imagine a day like I think I was yesterday, I came across the video where they said, if you are not satisfied with how we are running the government, wait till the next election. You can full of AstraZeneca in them because they believe the system is failed and they've hijacked it, they've pocketed it. So we need international affiliations. We need to make more noise. We need to start writing a lot for embassies. We need to make ourselves known and pronounced internationally. In 2023,
We didn't come together to make a report to all this. You see now, there's a problem at hand. A new sheriff in town, the Trump guy. The Trump guy card would have played more predominantly now if we can use that card properly. If we can know how to play that card internationally. I know the China guy will always play around him. The French guy is gone, is nowhere to be found. And maybe the British is neither here nor there because of their interest. Even if Trump will say, okay, the interest of Africa, of America is paramount. But we still need international voices to speak. We need international organizations to speak, not the European unions. European Union, a lot of them are compromised. A lot of them. You can imagine the saga that came out when they were told money were dished out to all those observers. So that is it. We need better international networking with those in Nigeria. We can come. Then about our ballot, casting our vote on the day of election. There's 3 things they've been using in Lagos. Number 1 is empower the tout, empower the court boys, then give the INEC guys money. The INEC guys will work with the party agents. Party agent will say, this is what you should do. This is what we want. And they have agents there that will be monitoring it. The polling unit I monitored. We found out that when they realize they've been beaten, they quickly sent some guys with guns and they came down and they took our ballots. They took the box. And the policemen were looking helplessly. Later, the policeman said, I'm coming, I'll go and speak to them. And they brought another ballot box. And I told them, this is not our ballot box. But there was no voice for us. We could not speak. Eventually, they won. But out of our 6 ballot boxes that was there at that junction, we were able to take more than 4. That was during the presidential. And they did one thing for us. When we got to where to check our list, they took us to another village entirely. They took us to another village. So we had to quickly go and get these small corporate buses to convey our people down there. So the bus was going, coming, going, and we won that ballot box. So we don't know I know they are going to break a lot of what our ballot unit this thing. They will break it into pieces. That's wanting to cause confusion. You will be here looking for your name. They will tell you the master paper is still coming. Why they are delaying? They know what they are doing because they've been able to understand that, oh, these people are more predominantly. And when it became the governor thing, they threatened everybody. Said, if you come out, we'll kill you. Don't even come out. And a lot of our people did not come out because they said, we don't want to be killed. So these are things we need to expose them. I think there should be a report now where we have to write about the 2023 election. Then we send it to all the foreign missions. You see, the only thing you can win these guys is they are afraid of being exposed to international bodies. They are very afraid. If you don't shout, they won't withdraw. But if you continue to pamper them, they become powerful. That's the 2 options I can say. So please, Sheikh, I don't know how you're going to do it. I saw Sister Aisha was here sometime before I joined again. Please, you guys, I don't know how you're going to govern. Please, we need international voices. We need to write a lot of petitions. We need to put all these things out there to all the international missions and let them understand, if possible, United Nations, let it be heard everywhere so that we can have an understanding that in 2027, we can plan more better and make it more pronounced so that even if they are going to bring their fraud, they'll be afraid that these children understand the system now. They know they are criminals. So that's my submission, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Sheikh.
Thank you very much. And I think at this juncture, you will be our last speaker. And you will use this opportunity to say thank you, everybody who has stayed on with us on this space. Thank you for the contributions from the charts to the speakers, to those who have been listening, because without you, the audience, there would not be this space. Everybody, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us your time. 3 hours of your time is no joke. And we hope that we've made the best use of your time, and we've also given you a reason to come back next week, Sunday, same time, 7 p.m. Nigerian time, and we will be discussing further. If you have a suggestion in terms of like what should be part of our next order paper, kindly just tweet us and use the hashtag Street Parliament, and we will be able to comb that and see those things before we make a decision. In terms of today's space, we've had a very robust conversation talking about INEC, the electoral reforms, and we had a huge submission from Century Favor, who has done an extensive work in that regard. In terms of reviewing INEC, there was so much disappointment and despair from people, where INEC failed in terms of providing voters registration for some people. And when people actually got their voters card, they struggled to find their polling units. And when they managed to find their polling unit, there were chances of violence that prevented them from voting. And when they voted successfully, there was some challenges with the collation and actually the transmission of these results. Going forward, there's a few thoughts out there. A huge body of work has been completed, and we're just waiting for final publication for it to be available for the public, and we will be engaging that work. One critical thing is the fact that amidst the despair we all have with INEC, is to know that electoral reforms is a continuum. Starting from 1999, we've seen micro movements and all of that, and we would be part of the next set of changes. However, it is important that everybody is part of that process. It's not something that we should leave for any one person alone. We will encourage everybody to please stay in touch with us, and also not just staying in touch to follow what we say, but please also bring up your own ideas, your own reflections, and your own action points, so that collectively we can build together this community and be able to take decisive action. I will just outline from our previous space, which was last week, where we did talk about a reflection of Nigeria. We saw things about the action points for moving forward: create a digital governance awareness platform, mobilize citizens' action beyond social media, which is like what we're asking for today, push for electoral reforms and strengthen INEC, which is where we are. Most of our conversation today center around leverage media and funding for reforms, encourage citizen representation and awareness, promote collaboration and partnerships, continue the Street Parliament movement. Thank you. So that's about 7 action points, which we will try to implement over the next few weeks. Key thing I think that we must all understand is that we are all partners in this, and no partner is too small. Every single action matters, whether it is from you retweeting the space, whether it's from you inviting your friends to the space next time, whether it is you writing something that you've spent some time doing the research and bringing it forward, volunteering in different capacities when we call upon you, or just generally being one of our attentive audience. You are all welcome to partner with us in different ways. Amidst all of that, I would say thank you very much once again. My name is Chukwudi Analo. I am from Onitsha Federal Constituency in Delta State. I am an active Nigerian. I am one who believes that Nigeria can work for all of us. I am one who believes that Nigeria can take its place at the table of nations, because, as it's always say, Nigeria no dey carry last. So good night to everybody, and see you same time, same place next week Sunday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time. Good night.
What